Steve's not going to be here. All set? Hi, welcome to the Planning Board of meeting of June 10th. And I think our first, I'm sorry I just dashed in a tiny bit late. Our first public hearing starts at 7:35, I think, so I have 2 minutes to collect myself. So our first public hearing, we do have to take the vote, is a continued public hearing for 76 Main Street. They have requested to be continued to when?
22nd.
Okay. And do we have a time, or did we research? Do we need to have a time?
I think, yeah, I think it's
My small additions. So 7:30. So I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for 76 Main Street to July 22nd at 7:30.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. 2 minutes. We're just whistling a happy tune until 7:35. Yeah, you might as well set up. Yep. So just for board members, we are all eligible to vote on this, including our newly elected members, because there's been no testimony taken, even though it was opened a long time ago. So this is really this is the first meeting where we're hearing testimony.
Through the chair, I have the notes that came this afternoon in my email. Is there a printed out version, Patrick?
Of what?
Of the minutes from last week, last meeting?
I have a printed
I
copy.
gave her a printed out version of the minutes.
We're probably not going to review those today and approve them,
No,
right?
definitely not, because they weren't posted. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There will be time.
Excellent, thank you.
Can I add something not related to a hearing?
Yes.
So I requested the enrollment projections from the superintendent, the most recent ones from December, and
Perfect.
And I'll share them with the group.
Awesome. By email, you're just going to send them around, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll copy John so that the town has.
Yes. Yeah.
Amy, those new numbers, what time frame do they cover in total?
I believe it's a 10-year out, so 10 years past, 10 years future.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you for doing that.
They're already a little behind, but.
They're already behind.
Shocker, I know.
This year's?
Well, they were done in December, so,
Okay, so
but there more students have enrolled
since
since
then?
December.
Okay.
We're in an attractive spot. So I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing for Maspenock Woods on West Elm Street.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay. So we're just waiting patiently till you're ready.
And one more thing, this is Chairwoman. I might need to be leaving around 9 today. So
Okay.
it might be for a little while, it might be for the whole time. So I'll play it by ear.
Play it by ear. Do what you need to do. Thanks for letting us know.
No.
So we typically let the proponent give us an overview, and then we'll ask the principal planner for his thoughts. He's already shared with us a lot of thoughts in his memo, but anything from there. And then I do have an outline. I apologize it wasn't in the packet, but I have an example to follow, so I'll detail out the outline. Our process often is to then hear from Beta, and then if there are any other town department comments, and then to discuss if there are anything we need to add to the typical agenda. And then we go from there. So welcome.
Thank you. Peter, why don't you start?
For the record, Peter Barbieri, on behalf of Maspenock in Bruce. All right, so what we have here tonight is changes to 3 buildings. So looking at the site plan on the, John, you got, oh, yeah, okay. So we're talking about, this works.
It won't light up on the screen.
It won't.
Doesn't work. It's not lighting up. So when you come in off of the main road, the buildings that you see in dark are the 2 areas of the buildings that we're changing. For the north of the screen is units 23 and 24, and just below those are 21 and 22. So they're kind of within a little isolated island. There's no units immediately abutting any of those. Around the back side, as well as the it's called the southern side, they continue to be set back. Their basic requirement of setbacks from streets. So we have changed the footprints of the buildings in interiors, and we can go through the individual plans and the changes, but overall they fit within the building envelope that was originally approved. So looking at 21 and 22, which again are the southerly dark buildings on that, we had an increase of 47 square feet on the main level. We modified some of the living areas, and we added an increase in the garage from 20 to 24 feet. We moved the mudroom. The size of the study was enlarged. As to unit 22, the area of that first floor was actually reduced by 107 square feet. And then the upper levels were also modified and increased by 50 and 80 square feet separately. So this is what you see on that photograph right there. That is the depiction of what the unit will be. It's consistent with the CECLs that were previously approved in the nature of the architectural materials and all those things. We're not changing any of that. And then again, the description of the changes are on the packet that you have. And again, that's the better blow up of those. They continue to all be the same number of bedrooms, same construction, same element. We met with the design review board in April on the changes to the CECLs, as well as the changes to 23 and 24, and I'll describe those. They didn't have any issues with those at that point in time. The second thing we're changing, a little more complicated, is a single unit off of Elm Street. Before we get to that, the other change, again, is the units 23 and 24. That's the view of them. And again, you have the detailed changes to the floor area. Basically, unit 24 was expanded more to the right. We switched off the site plan and increased, the whole footprint was increased by about 600 square feet. However, the upper level was reduced. Again, same number of bedrooms, same whole architecture of the whole thing, but there was more room, as you saw from the site plan, to that north element, that we created a deck in more room off of that, and really opened up the middle of the unit for the family room, dining room, and kitchen. So we increased the square footage a bit on that one and less on 23. In the upper levels were both decreased in size from what was previously approved. Again, we kept the same separation distance around the road, the same setback from the drive leading to these units, and those were the changes.
And the design review board, just for the record, has seen both of those, right? And have no issues with either of them? Okay.
So,
I can give you comments if you want, which they've done. So if the garage is going to be at the front, we wanted a little more detail, even though it's a garage, which they've done. And if the garage was going to be at the side, we wanted at least a window, even though it wasn't the garage, because it just breaks up the facade. So, and they were agreeable.
so those 4 units, you know, again, we met with the design, they really didn't ask us to change any of those. The other unit we're talking about changing, or in essence creating, is the single family that was on West Elm Street that is part of the original decision the board wanted us to remove, and we've now developed a plan for that. And in regards to that, that's the whole amendment of the special permit. Under your special permit requirements, that you're supposed to have a perimeter buffer of 100 feet around the development. With the original approval, the board reduced that to 75 from, again, that site plan that you saw. But because of wetlands and the way that was laid out and the septic system that is necessary for 5 West Rome, we can't meet that requirement. We're asking for waivers of that. We have designed that development so that it complies with the dimensional requirements in the underlying district, which is a 50-foot front setback and a 25-foot side setback. But we can't meet the dimensional requirements or the special permit requirements. The original building didn't meet them either. So we're asking for that relief and that amendment of the special permit. In going through with the design review, again, that was a little bit different from us because what it was a normal duplex, which we had originally shown to the design review board. But what happens, that common wall that you don't have the duplex unit next to, they were asked us to dress that up a little bit more. So we went back to the design review board in May, and at the same time, the engineer looked at the concept from the viewpoint of the layout of the residents coming from West Elm. And we developed a separate alternative, which is a driveway, a garage off the side rather than off the front. So the plans that you have in part of your package, we just updated on Friday, so you don't have the newest ones. I've got those and I'll show them. So again, you've got West Elm Street. This would be the proposal with the driveway coming off the side rather than off the front as the base site plan. Again, 25-foot setback, 50-foot back in the road. Both scenarios, we keep those requirements. So this, again, this would be the front view from Elm Street, the drive on the other side. When we met with the design review, this wall, again, that would have been the common wall to have a unit next to it. They asked for a little more items there, so we actually took the entryway, which originally was on the other side, and moved it on this side to create the break of all those elements. So again, we put in windows in the front. We'll have the typical landscaping around the building. So this is the side entry layout. And that would be, as you're coming down West Elm Street, before you get to the house, that would be the view you would see. And from the original entry, we have the sunroom in the back corner. And again, did some interior changes from the previously approved Emily unit. That's the depiction kind of from the back side along the back with a deck.
Barbieri?
Can you just give us, for those of us that weren't around for the early hearings on this, can you give us a little bit of history? Because my understanding is that the original plan was to keep the existing house. And so it would be helpful to hear a little bit more detail about what's changed from when the original special permit was approved.
The actual paperwork. I think it was the 2013 decision asked us to either upgrade or tear down that building because it was an old building in need of much repair. So when we went through looking at trying to just rehabbing it, the cost of rehab and the size of the building didn't fit with anything else that was taking place in the development. In fact, not having been involved in the original approval, the original site plan that was presented for the project actually had driveway coming off that lot. And apparently through discussions with the board, the drive was switched on the back where it is now. That lot, however, was kept as part of the condominium, even though it really doesn't have any, do you have the site plan again, the overall site plan? So again, you can see it down on the right-hand corner. That's a lot we're talking about. But originally, the road was going to come in there and connect and loop around, and ultimately the plan approved coming off the north plan, the northern portion of the site. This lot could have been separated out because, as you can see, it really never has any relationship to the rest of the condominium. In the nature of it doesn't use the roadways, it doesn't have the drainage system, it's got its own separate system. For all intent and purposes at that point in time, it probably should have been backed out. It can be backed out and still leave the entire development with the required open space for the special permit requirements for this type of a development. But for some reason it was not, and that's something we're looking at and would have to come back and ask the board to amend it, pulling it out, because there's legally no real reason for that lot to be part of this condominium development. Again, it doesn't share in any of the aspects of the open space, the roadway, no maintenance issues as well. But that property was looked, as I saw it in the decision, wanting to be upgraded, and by the time you did that in the septic system, it really left no alternative but to basically remove it and replace it with a unit that is being built within the development.
Okay, so just so I understand, so the original special permit was approved with the intention of keeping that unit, correct? And then at some point...
I was not involved in the original permitting, so...
Upgrading or removing it was what I heard.
I don't know that there was specific to keeping it. I mean, it's a tear down. It really...
So was the original plan to tear it down?
I think it was, and to build a home in the same spot.
Through the chair?
I don't think that it was necessarily to...
We're going to hold our questions until we get to
home,
that.
but it was to build a home in that spot, and they just sort of left. They didn't really go any further.
Okay.
I was just, this is their lawyer's letter?
Yeah, go
Right
ahead.
here? Okay, so it says from the Fletcher and Tilton, the 2005 approval included waivers so that the existing house at 5 West Elm Street may remain in its present location. So it wasn't a tear down initially, just wanted to clarify that. It may have been later on in 2013, but at the 2005, this is according to their lawyer. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I was on the board when the 2013 discussion was happening, And I can counter some of the things that we're saying and maybe give some context to some of the things that were said. But some of the wording that's been used, I think, is very misleading. We agreed that the building would either be restored or could be torn down, but not replaced because of the issues he was pointing out. And one of the reasons there was not a driveway through there is because of the wetlands and issues with what you're gonna do with that property in the future, and leaving that for a future decision. It's not like it wasn't addressed, it wasn't thought about, it wasn't planned. This project was fully planned and approved for what it was, and it keeps coming back and changing and changing and changing. So, no, I was there, the house is either gonna be restored or torn down, and that's up to you.
So this is new discussion to put a new unit up there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I think we understand. Did you have anything more in your presentation?
We can fully describe changes if you'd like, but so what we were hoping to do, again, this is the site plan with the driveway coming off the front. So that would be the depiction of the unit with the driveway off the front. It is a question from the viewpoint of the Conservation Commission in which one they're going to allow us to build, because as you can see from the site plan, we're within the buffer from wetlands to the left-hand side. So they may not allow us to do the side entry, which has a little bit more grading impact within that buffer. So we're hoping if we reach agreement on changes to this unit, that you would do it in the alternative, and whichever one the Conservation Commission approved, that would be the one that we would construct.
When do you see the Concom?
We haven't
applied yet.
You haven't applied yet.
Okay, I think that it would be, I'm not going to speak for the whole board, but I think that I can say that it would be uncommon for us to approve two alternatives depending on what the Concom decides. So I don't know that that's an expectation you want to count on. How about the principal planner?
So there's two decisions here. You've got the special permit decision, which concerns 5 West Elm. You've got the design changes to units 21 through 24. The change in the units doesn't seem significant. The design review board signed off on those. It's mostly internal type stuff. So that would just have to meet the site plan requirements. I think there's a decision that needs to be made by the planning board, whether it's major or minor. The applicant has requested that we advertise for major just in case, so that there's a decision that can be made. So if you guys choose it as a major, that decision can be made today. Okay. For that. If it's a minor, it wouldn't need to be advertised anyway. So that one's
okay.
So, the special permit, I see the applicant's argument that it's kind of separate from the development, and therefore it does conform to the underlying zoning. However, it is part of the special permit, so it would be the board's purview to review those setbacks in context of the special permit. And the board is able to grant those waivers, so it would be able to grant the relief needed, but it would be up to the board to determine whether that is appropriate.
So specifically, it is part of the special permit, even though it is sort of set aside from the development. Yeah.
Because it was, as Frank pointed out, it was allowed to either be upgraded or torn down as part.
Right. Did you have a question?
Again, I'm just interested in the history here, but I mean, given that it sounds like it's always planned to be its own separate dwelling, so why was it included in the special permit to begin with? I mean,
Again, originally the roadway was coming off there, so
okay,
a lot was to
okay,
be
so that's
part
why,
of it.
okay, thank you.
And then that was never changed when the road was shifted. It likely should have been leaving it in the underlying distance with the 50-foot setback, 25-foot setback, which we meet. Because again, the existing house doesn't meet your setbacks for the district because of the special permit.
Okay, and are there any engineering difficulties or challenges at all?
I don't know if they had any comments on that. I don't believe they did.
I mean, we've got to get a new septic approval on Concom for the unit on West Elm. The other the other 4 units, the roadways, there's nothing changed site-wise, it's just the footprint of the units.
Yeah, I had some note that there was an open issue from the Board of Health, that's the septic, right? The Board of Health?
We filed with them the site plan application in all the plans. I haven't heard from them, although I did see a letter just saying that the septic testing had to be witnessed and all the normal requirements. And again, same numbers of bedroom as originally approved, so, you know, there's nothing there than the normal process we have to go through for the septic approval.
And when did you file with the Board of Health? What?
We haven't filed yet.
For 31?
Board of Health, yeah, no.
You haven't yet, or, I'm sorry?
No, there's a septic field in the ground from the previous house.
Oh, okay, so the design, I guess, is to use the
That's
existing
the
if they
existing.
allow it, because the
Yeah,
existing
the
was
design
more
that
than
we're
2
looking
bedroom.
at is the current
Proposed.
septic.
Okay, so you still have to utilize the Board of Health process, right? Because it's Title V situation?
Well,
Is that
we've got to
right?
get them to agree that we can use the existing system for the new house, which should be fine, because this is only a 2-bedroom dwelling, and that's what.
Right.
First
Did you-
Concom, then Board of Health. is
Did
waiting.
you, have you initiated with the Board of Health was my question? Not
We
yet?
haven't filed for a Title V.
Okay.
And just to clarify, I believe you're saying it's Concom, then Board of Health.
Final sign-off
Same
from the Board
day.
of Health and Concom have to be filed, yep.
Can I have another
Yes.
question?
Yeah.
And then, I wouldn't have guessed this, but it looks like it was built in 1940, so it's more than 75 years old. Is that correct? Or,
I don't know what year it was built.
okay, so the property record card on the town website says 1940, which surprised me, it looks newer than that, but so that would also have to go through historical commission for demolition permit, right? Is that correct?
It's more than 75 years, yeah.
Yeah, we'll check the year.
You
I
can
don't
double check.
know the year.
Okay. I doubt that it's historically significant, but it's just have to go through the process.
Yep.
Through the chair, what was some of the reasons I can imagine some of the reasons the initial entryway to the development was moved, but if you could just go through why the driveway didn't go through this lot at that time? Like, if it was initially planned to go through this lot, why was it moved to the backside?
Neither of us were part of that permitting.
So I don't
So
think,
we acquired the development post
post-approval.
that approval process, several years,
Okay.
5 or 6 years after that.
The next item on the agenda is other town departments and comments, and I think that the Board of Health and Concom are the 2 open ones that I know. We always ask about the fire department access. I presume that's all set, or have you talked to the fire department?
We have not.
We have not. I wouldn't think there would be a problem. Again, the unit on West Elm will be a normal house on a normal road, and the other changes aren't impacting any of the roadway patterns to the units.
Yeah, we do have a relatively new bylaw that does drive that process a little bit. It is very worth asking him, particularly on some of our more challenging roads and areas. I was going to say scenic, but I don't know that it's a scenic road. That has its own connotation. But it's very definitely worth asking the fire department and avoiding any challenges there.
We'll do that.
Can you think of any other town departments that necessarily? I think that one, okay.
Yes, I do have a question about other town departments.
Yes.
At some point, there was talk about making like a landing or a dock at the end of the property on the west side of the lake, or the side of the lake that's there. Is that still a possibility?
We constructed a boathouse.
Okay.
That's been constructed, and it is housing boats, and people are usually utilizing them.
So Parks and Rec has nothing to do with that kind of situation. It's use the lake as they're restricted to that side of the lake because of the bridge, the land bridge, but okay, it's nice to know that's completed.
So at this point, planning board members and the public are invited to add to the outline if there are issues that we want to make sure we cover that aren't on the typical outline. And I apologize, I'm working off a draft nobody has in front of them. But let me just read it really quickly. Planning board members add to the outline, schedule a site walk if needed, detailed discussion on things like the Conservation Commission filing, zoning compliance, road and lot layout design, concept plan, traffic, stormwater management, utilities, the septic system, open space. Some of this is not going to be necessary in detail because it's a small piece of this special permit. Historical features, I don't think that we're going to have any open beta issues. It would be final beta issues. And I would say on this one, we would be deciding early whether it was a major or minor change on the two sets of 2 units. Anybody have anything else they want to add? Anybody from the public have anything to add to the outline? We need to have you come forward, introduce yourself so the folks at home and we know who you are, and then your address.
My name is Lori Hurley. I live at 2 Lake Point Way. I am a 4-year resident of Hopkinton, and I've been living in Maspenock since August of 2016. I don't have fancy boards, but I did put together.
Did you want, you can pass these things out. What we're specifically asking for at the moment is whether you have things you want to add to the outline. But we will certainly take all your testimony.
Okay, so I do that after?
Potentially, yes.
So I'd like to add landscaping. They take care of consideration because my unit, although there's no unit that abuts, the back of that unit will look right into my bedroom.
So the back of, okay, so that, the back of, just so I know, the unit that used to be the house and is going to be a new unit,
No,
or?
sorry, the ones.
That's okay.
If you look at the 4.
Is it 21, 22, 23, 24?
Yeah. So I'm the first one in, so basically the back of their house will look into.
Yep, it's definitely the time to add landscaping to the conversation. We'll talk about that for sure. And is there anything else you want to add to the outline?
No, but I will get an opportunity to speak before you guys vote.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
All right, that's my first.
Yep. No, well, welcome, and I'm glad you're here.
How about landscaping and screening, maybe?
Yeah.
May I look at your draft agenda?
You may. That's my guess.
You've been carrying this around for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, you know, I was lucky to find it. It was
I can
a
tell.
little
Is this dot matrix?
wow. Anybody else have anything to add?
So we haven't discussed it yet, but we do intend to provide landscape screening in the rear of these units, and we can prepare a landscaping plan and add that to the record for discussion.
Yeah, that'll probably be really helpful.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Ready? Yep. Okay. The next item on the agenda is we typically schedule a site walk if folks are interested in a site walk.
Well, wouldn't that depend if it's a major or minor revision?
Not necessarily. I guess it depends if people want a site walk, but I think that might factor in. If people feel that it's minor, they might not feel they need to. Or people.
I'd like a site walk in particular for 5 Elm Street.
Yes, the new,
Yes.
the old house, new
Yeah.
unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind actually, if, at the same time, just taking a twirl and seeing the whole thing.
Great.
Okay, so we very often do them on Saturday mornings at 9. This is an opportunity to walk the site, ask some general questions. No testimony is not a part of the hearing process. No testimony or commitments are made at that point, but it's a nice way to get to see what is happening and what might be happening and things that might affect pieces of our decision. So the public is welcome. The planning board members work to support that. So I don't know, what is everybody's availability on Father's Day weekend?
On Saturday,
Saturday.
I'm running in the Timlin race, so.
That's Saturday. Okay. Good for you. Maybe the following Saturday is what, the 22nd?
We'll be out of town.
You'll be out of town?
I'm out of town as well.
All right, we're gonna have to pick one, see this is how it goes. The other thing is that, for example, I was not able to go to one at the time it was scheduled, but nothing keeps us, I presume we're welcome to go out if a member is not able to go to the walk itself, can go and walk around and see it.
Of course.
So is the 15th work for everybody else?
What about a Thursday?
What about what?
A Thursday. Maybe more people would be considered, yeah.
evening?
a
Thursday?
Thursday,
Evening or?
Yeah, just
Morning,
evening. Maybe, it's dark at 8:30 now, so maybe 6:37, would a time during the week work for people?
It's not perfect for me, but I leave it to the other members of the board. Does somebody want to do a weeknight or a Saturday morning?
For me, it depends more on the particular day, whether Thursday or Saturday is better, so I don't object to a Thursday.
All right, so Thursday, it would have to be after the 15th, right? Would we, I mean, you'd have to post it tomorrow morning if it was going to be this Thursday.
So technically, if it's a site walk without any deliberation, you don't have to post it?
Don't
but
have to post it? Do we usually post it?
We do usually
Yeah,
post it,
okay, that's
but-
what I thought so. I love checking boxes and keeping it, you know, but we could post it tomorrow morning, that's cute of me to say we. You folks could post it on, tomorrow morning, and it would be in time for Thursday afternoon if we picked Thursday.
8 o'clock. And in the sidewalk, in what time in the morning, 9 o'clock?
No, she was talking about in the
PM?
evening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So 6:30 PM this Thursday or 9 AM on this Saturday. What's your pick there, Amy?
I don't think I can do either of those
Okay.
this week.
That was a lot of work. Frank?
Scouts are Thursday and Saturday might be better for me, but I've been there,
Okay.
not a big deal for that.
Jerry?
I can't do either.
Can't do either. Okay, so the next weekend, you're away?
The following weekend, yeah.
Yeah.
But I can do it on my own.
Okay. How about you, Patrick? What did you
Available
say?
next Saturday, 21st.
The 21st, you're 22nd?
Yeah.
Okay. So how about Saturday, the 22nd at 9?
I can do that.
I'm going to bow out. My future is unpredictable at the moment. I have a family member who's ill, so,
Okay.
So if you
yeah.
can-
So
you
I'm
can-
gonna go on my own. I'll go.
All
on my
right,
own.
so, okay, I don't want to, okay. If we tried for the Thursday, would you just rather go on your own? It's more
I
flexible?
think I'd just rather go on my own
Okay.
at this point.
All right.
yeah.
I'm just checking my
Unless
calendar.
Unless it was this Thursday. Well, you know,
Okay.
yeah.
I am available on the 22nd.
22nd is okay for me.
Frank?
Probably.
I'll go on my own.
Okay.
Continue this until June.
I can make the 22nd.
Okay. And Mary, you're away. And I don't know about Dave, if you can shoot him an email just to let him know we've got one planned for. So it'll be the June 22nd, Saturday, June 22nd at 9. Where should we meet you?
Would you like to start in the subdivision or out on?
Probably makes sense to be in so we can park our cars off of West Elm.
Okay.
So where's a good place?
So I think that the location of the units will be self-evident when you pull in, and
Okay.
we'll just meet right there.
Okay.
It'll be easy to see.
So the
those.
new units,
Yeah, the area that hasn't been developed is
Yep.
somewhat self-evident.
saying self-evident so I won't get lost.
Yes,
It's a lot of responsibility you're
It's a
taking right
small-
there.
feel good about it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And you'll see coming into the site where the existing building has been taken down on West Elm as you drive by and come up to the subdivision.
Okay, I'm just putting it in my calendar.
He said the existing building is gone.
Or 9 a.m. Okay, thank you. So we talked about the Conservation Commission filing, that is to be done, and so we don't have a status on that. Do you think we should decide on the internal units, the major and minor, before we keep going? What do you?
I
What's
just
the
have
feeling?
one question, because I sort of caught the tail end of what you said. You said you can tell when you drive in where the existing building is gone. Which building are you talking about?
Well, it's the proposed site for the two duplexes. If we put the site plan back up, I can be specific about direction. So as we come in the entrance, at the very top, the dark areas are two unconstructed locations.
Yep.
And that's where we're gonna be. So it's gonna be right in front of us when we pull it. So if we drive in, and you can just pull over to the right and we're gonna be there.
Okay. Yep.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just from a process
Yeah.
perspective, I actually think it's cleaner to talk about these separately, at least discussion-wise. That's my take on it. I don't know if that makes
Yeah, well,
it messier, but I just sort of feel like we're talking about some design changes that may or may not be impactful, and we're talking about, the location of a unit that is kind of its own entity.
Yep. I don't disagree. You mean, so to run through the whole process for the two sets of 2 units?
Well, I mean, it sounds like, if I understand it, is that first we decide whether the changes are
That's what I was just asking.
Minor
And
or major.
I feel like that, for the 2 sets of 2 units, is a different discussion.
yes.
Right.
I would agree. And I just, even in terms of the public that's here, I don't know where other people's interests lie, but I mean, maybe we can just make things a little bit more efficient and talk about one first and then move on to the other.
I'm fine doing that. So we'll talk about the changes to the 21, 22, 23, and 24 first. So I feel like that's going to be easier.
And even a lot of the agenda items, those are going to be really quickly, because I don't think there's a
I
lot
think
of
so too.
impact there.
Yeah, I think so too. So I don't think there are issues with zoning compliance. There are no issues, I don't think, in front of us as far as road or lot layout and design. So stop me if you think that I'm going too fast past it on these. Traffic. Stormwater management is sort of not applicable because that was done, right? Utilities for those, for 21, 22, 23, and 24 are all part of, or nothing's changing with those.
Right.
Open space and remaining land ownership isn't going to change, or trails isn't going to change.
No, that's correct.
Does the Concom have to review those changes? I didn't think so, okay.
Not 21 through 24, no.
And there are historical features to be discussed with those units? None? God. Okay, so landscaping would be the issue that is in front of us to talk about for units 21, 22, 23, and 24. So this is your moment, Lori. And if somebody could give her a spot to sit there and explain her comments, that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, again, my name is Lori Hurley, and I live in unit number 2.
You can go ahead and sit. Oh, yeah.
And I was the first resident of Maspenock Woods. So I'm here tonight, there's nobody who wants those dirt mounds gone more than me, I can assure you of that. But I'm here tonight to ask for your help. There's some major issues going on in our complex that we need to have addressed, and despite countless emails, phone calls to Chuck and Inspectional Services, who's been wonderful, helpful, and to Habitat, we're still dealing with these issues. Most of us moved to this condo so we wouldn't have to deal with landscaping or deal with some of the general stuff that you deal with in your house. We pay a monthly fee for that to be taken care of. But many of us still do the maintenance ourselves. 2 neighbors just this week have planted seed around their yards and their units. I personally, every year, go out and trim all my own landscaping because, as you'll notice, it's growing up the infrastructure.
So 2 issues, landscaping that exists and landscaping that you would like to see in place when these units go in.
Yeah, and I can be more specific. So I'll start with the gutters, because to be honest, it's a deeper problem than just landscaping. So if you go to slide 2, I've tried to give you some visuals of what the sides of our units look like. From sprinklers fully exposed to the line buildup on the side of the house, water's washing away from the dirt and the lawn on the sides of our house, and in some cases it's leaving very large holes. All of our units have gutter issues. They have attempted to fix. They clean them. It's still not fixed. There's still a problem. So that's slide 2. If you go to slide 3, I have personally 5 cracks in my foundation. Last year, the condo did pay for one of the cracks because it was leaking water. The condo association will pay for a crack if it's leaking water. But the one that you notice on slide 3, because that one wasn't leaking water, it was 6 feet long, cracking, chipping, and getting worse. I chose to pay for that myself. I had 2 separate experts come into my unit, and I showed them the drainage problems and my cracks. They both agreed that they were most likely caused or contributed by the drainage issue I was having. From the day I moved in, I have complained from my very first punch list that the gutter, drainage, and lack of landscaping, but until there was water in my basement, there was no action from Habitat other than just cleaning the gutters. Yes, the debris does help the draining to fix, but it needs to be fixed properly. Slide 4 shows how Habitat has addressed our concerns. They continue to throw dirt, rocks, and finally I have some sod, but these are all short-term Band-Aids, and they're not addressing the root of the problem, which is the construction of the gutters. Many of my neighbors, a couple of them have already complained that they have cracks in their foundation, and we do realize sometimes your house just settles. But they're going to get worse, and it's our problem to fix when they're gone in 2 years. Drainage in general is a problem, so if you go to slide 5, the pictures are really hard to see, but I'm trying to show how on the sides and back of our houses, we need every picture in there, those trenches are several inches deep. On the side of my house, I have no grass and I have a major ditch. I do not let my kids run down there. They're gonna twist, those young kids running, they're gonna twist an ankle. I have no dirt, or it's mud. You need someone to come out. It's a retaining wall, it's sod, I'm not sure, I'm not the expert, but what's there is unacceptable. There are several units, North Pond, some of those pictures are from North Pond, so when you do your site tour, please go around. I would love for you to go around behind the buildings and look at some of the concerns that I'm bringing up here. I wasn't going to bring up the lack of landscaping, which you'll see on the last slide. But after speaking to my neighbor this week, who had to pay for his own exterminator to come out, and I personally have dealt with ants and spiders, which you just attribute to new construction, it's very possible that it's also due to that we've got landscaping that's crawling up the sides of our house. That, as anyone knows, you should not have landscaping touching your house. And that also, because of the drainage of the landscaping, could be contributing to our foundational issues.
So I stand here tonight to ask for your help with these issues to be addressed permanently, not these short-term. Those units in front of me, I realize that Habitat just says they will do landscaping. They haven't proven in 3 years that they've been able to do proper landscaping.
Okay.
We're done with the shortcuts, and I appreciate your time tonight, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, so I think that the landscaping plan will be important, and also sort of maintenance and restorative concerns is it's a good time to look at that as well. Okay, thank you.
We'll have a landscaping plan for the next meeting.
Okay.
And I guess our ask though is that we don't give any more permits until what we have today is fixed. The complex is.
So I'm gonna stop you here. We have a couple of different things going on. We're very much paying attention to your concerns, and we're I'm making the decision to wrap it into this process, but we have to stay true to the process too. So I appreciate it. I don't think that this board is going to sort of mandate ultimatums and things like that. We're going to choose to work with the developer to try and address the concerns going forward. But I appreciate that you brought them forward and that they're frustrating.
If I may, through the chair.
Yep.
Ms. Hurley, you came in before us before, and I remember that was, I think in the other room.
I think that was Heidi Edwards. She
Okay.
had,
Yeah, you actually have to be over here by the mics, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was Heidi Edwards. She was the unit that's next to, I think they wanted to change one of the units at the end of the.
And did she have the same or similar problems?
Oh.
Are there other neighbors here that?
Go ahead, Steve, put it on the spot.
I'm Peter Sikansky.
You have to come right up for the mic, sir, so that you can be heard by the folks at home.
I'm a new resident there. It's less than, the end of this month will be a year for us. I mean, I've seen the issues. Our house so far, we have not had the breaks in the concrete or whatever. However, the gutters were an issue right up front. They did install wider gutters. It seems to be working. They just, this week, we're cleaning them out because mine was starting to overflow again. Cleaning it out will help. We'll see it again tonight, so that should be okay. But some of the issues that Laurie was talking about in terms of the general landscaping where this topsoil has been washed away, it's down to gravel, rough stuff, a lot of spots. I mean, there are a fair number of areas where that is still present, going on. I know they've been bringing in, landscapers as each of these new units, and they did, for example, our area, touch it up, and they did reseed it this year. Still waiting for some of that grass to come up.
Sure.
But, I mean, I'm relatively new there, haven't been here as long as Laurie has, so.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Any questions or comments?
I think that, I haven't seen comments from our scientist yet, but this shows that we should probably look at stormwater management again, because it's causing ruts and not operating as it should, so we should probably highlight that as something that the scientists should review.
That Beta should review?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Take a look at. Yeah.
Our scientists.
Through the
Anybody
chair.
else? Yes.
I would just imagine, being right near Maspenock, that there is just ground, the water level is high. And I'd imagine there's water in people's basements requiring sump pumps. And I don't know how that should be factored in here in any type of design considerations, project considerations. Like when you see cracks in a foundation, it's obviously, there's a certain aspect of water, and just the groundwater, and any, I don't think it's necessarily too relevant to 2124 if it's really interior modifications, but it definitely would be relevant to 5 West.
Okay. I definitely think that it's worth, we're gonna have a site walk anyway. It's definitely worth having Beta and John take a look at it. I don't know if you'll go on the site walk with us or go out with.
So they have not submitted stormwater information based on?
No,
this? So
I know.
Nothing. to
Well,
review at
they
this
did, they had, it was part of the permit, so this would be a review of the functionality, right?
point? Yes, I guess. Review
That's-
of the as-built.
At least just, find out if it's a big or small concern, or no concern. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm looking for all my planning board members, they're all nodding their heads. And we're going to go out on the 22nd and see it ourselves. Does the board feel comfortable deciding whether the 21, 22, 23, and 24 are major or minor decisions? I'm comfortable with it being a minor change.
I'm comfortable with it being minor as well.
Minor.
So do we need a vote on that?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Just if you want me to read the criteria for me. to
Sure.
do that might be helpful.
Yeah, perfect.
So a minor project is defined as an increase in gross floor area of not more than 5,000 square feet, or the addition of rooftop HVAC or mechanical equipment substantially visible from a public or private street or public place requiring a building permit, or construction, enlargement, or alteration of a parking area containing 5 or more parking spaces. That is a minor project.
We haven't exceeded any of that.
Right.
We also have a question from a resident that was submitted by email about heights. And I assume that all of the construction heights are within the special permit guidelines.
Should be, yes.
And we wouldn't do anything here to decide to exceed those.
We haven't changed the heights in these, with these new duplexes. We haven't changed the height of from the original buildings.
Okay.
One thing that would be useful through the chair is in the past when I think it was the Lisa model, when there was changes, you had the before and after pictures and they were colored and to show what the changes were in relation to what the original was. And here, it's just, we have it in black and white, and it's not the same clarity as what the changes are.
I think that they're
colors.
online in color, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, in our packet,
They are.
yeah.
I just looked on this.
Yep.
They're in the packet on the iPad.
So I will entertain a motion to consider the changes for 21, 22, 23, and 24 as minor changes to the special permit.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Are people prepared to take a vote or have more questions on 21, 22, 23, 24? I know we're going to go see them.
What vote would we take then?
Well, to approve the changes. It seems we've just decided they're minor changes, but do we have additional questions on those changes specifically?
I guess I have questions about the drainage, and this looks like the drainage wasn't done quite right around the houses of the other units, so I'd like to make sure that the drainage is done correctly on the new units.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd rather wait to vote.
Yeah, I have
Okay.
some, yeah, and I have some questions about the water table heights and how the basements are reacting to that.
Yep.
And so I'd like to have some more information from the engineer.
Okay, so just asking for clarity, not necessarily with the design. If the engineer comes back with feedback on the drainage, we'll be able to, but we don't have questions on the design. Anybody else?
Previously, I thought the design was more offset, but if this is the change to these side by side, more side by side, is market driven or consumer driven, I think this offset looked better conceptually, but it's been through the design review and board, and this is what your business plan is, and that seems okay.
So,
I have one question. As far as the design is concerned and as far as the neighbors are concerned, is the new design any more imposing on the neighbors other than being able to be screened because you're popping out into the diagonal space, which is really cool, by the way. I like how you've done that. But the question is, does it use the lot? It increases the usage of the lot, correct?
It's all still within the building envelope.
Okay.
There's a different shape, but it's within the building, the setbacks that exist for the buildings throughout the units, throughout the development.
Okay, but wasn't there some that, maybe we can pull that up again, some of the jogs that protruded over those lines?
No.
No, they're all set back in.
Okay. Both of the units, both before and after, meet the setback, but, you know, we added the sunroom here and the deck is enlarged, but again, they're all within the allowed buildable area.
Okay, that's what I wanted to confirm.
All right.
Thank you.
I think that
Okay.
I think we have a more detailed discussion coming up on the old house and the new one going in, and it makes sense to do that after we see the property. I think, from what I'm hearing and what I'm thinking, we need to know that the water is being managed on site the way that it was intended to be and is under control. And we need to see a landscaping plan before we are ready to approve these. But it doesn't sound like there are major issues with 21, 22, 23, and 24 on their own. I wonder, before we move on to another topic, if anybody has any big concerns about number 5 that they can be working on when we continue the hearing, that we know of.
So I drive by that all the time, and it's been a vacant, it's been a decaying structure for a long time, dirt mounds. I just, like, having a septic system on property there, I just don't know how. I have concerns about the viability of a septic system on property, because it's just so wet. Like, literally, Maspenock can get to water levels right close to the property. That would be one of my main concerns.
So that would be part of the Board of Health process, but I agree with the concern. And so we're gonna wanna know how that process is going with our other boards. And Concom,
We'll
obviously.
apply for the Title V and find out.
Yeah, and Concom, I'd get on their schedule as well.
Pardon?
Concom,
Yes, we'll apply for both.
yep. Anybody else with anything in particular before we move to a few other agenda items that we're gonna squeeze in here?
Just wanted to clarify that the landscaping plan will address the concerns of some of the window placement changing and maybe looking onto the neighbor's property, not on 5 Elm.
Say that again for me, just so I can hear you.
Sorry, the landscaping and screening, the landscaping plan will address some of the concerns about windows looking over to neighboring properties.
We're going to provide a screening plan that will be designed to screen the rear of these 4 units from the units across the street.
And that, I'm sorry,
Yep.
just following on what Amy was saying, one of the abutters was talking about having discussed with you the installation of additional screening with their abutting property. So in general for the development, not for these new units, but in general for the development, rhododendrons and so on.
The Mosher's on
Mosher's.
West Elm Street.
Oh, was there a letter?
Did you get this email? I don't know when it came in.
Came in today.
Today, oh,
Okay.
okay. So let me read it into the record because it's short. It's from John Mosher. I have read, maybe I need my glasses actually. Here we go. I have read the documents regarding Maspenock Woods. I am not opposed to the minimal alterations to the floor plans. However, I did not see building heights listed. There is a scale but no dimensions. Noting the proximity of these units to my house, I am interested in the height. I also have heard concerns from a resident regarding outstanding issues of completion and warranty within the development. I think we probably just heard about those. One of the concerns which I share is lack of parking. We didn't talk about that. If there is limited on-site parking for guests, they may look to park in the street. In this location, that would be particularly unsafe. I have had conversations with the site manager to improve the screening between our properties. We had agreed last fall that rhododendrons would be suitable. I'm hoping to see those get planted in the near future. I would be interested in the construction schedule as well. just throwing this in at the end, it would be great if we could enjoy the summer with minimal noise as this project has been ongoing for years. But that's the entirety of the email, just so you have it and the public has it. So if there were conversations with an abutting property owner and agreements made for screening, that would be pertinent to make sure we address it this time too.
Yeah, I'll look into that. And can I get a copy of that?
Yeah, yep, totally. It'll all be part of the record that's accessible online, but you can certainly, yeah, yep, absolutely.
From the viewpoint of the parking, I mean, nothing is changing from the viewpoint of the original
Yeah.
design. Each unit has their 2 parking
Yeah.
spaces on it. It's no different than a roadway subdivision.
I have a tendency to agree with you that, that isn't going to change, but I just certainly going to read in his comments. It wouldn't be appropriate to extend parking out onto West Elm there for sure.
What address is John Mosier at? So when I go on the site, do we have that
I think he
information?
said, didn't he? I just gave my email away.
I didn't see it on
He's on the overall site plan.
He's
in the upper
right
left-hand
to the
corner.
left, immediately to the left of the entrance driveway to
Is it up there?
Maspenock Woods.
Closest to the
I think
coast.
that's the only house in between.
Number 3,
Okay.
number 3 West Elm, I'm not sure, 3, maybe 5. 3?
No, 5 is the new one, or the one that.
Oh, that's right, the one we're talking about.
Yeah, 5 is.
Probably.
Yeah.
I saw his name on the plan.
Yeah, it's,
Because it's only left.
It's probably this one right
Yeah.
here. That's the one right next door, yeah, behind.
So not a terrible idea to connect with him as well. You have, limited exposure there, but to make sure that if you're doing it, you might as well do it in a way that keeps people as supportive as possible.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. When would be our next available time to continue the hearing?
Likely July 22nd.
All right, and the only thing on there was what we just put on there?
E76.
76.
July 22nd.
So why don't we put it on at 8:30,
What date was that?
July 22nd?
Sidewalk, June 22nd,
Yep.
next July 22nd.
And then we'd hope for an update, certainly
Yeah,
a
that'll give us
landscaping
time
plan,
to
but
file
hope for an
with the
update.
Concom, talk to Board of Health, we'll talk to the
Yep.
fire department as
Yep,
well.
perfect,
And do a landscape plan.
perfect. So I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to July 22nd at 8:30.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
There's discussion, sorry.
I was just gonna add that John Mosher is 13 West Elm, if that.
Oh, it's 13. Thank you, appreciate that. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
Do you need to continue both hearings?
Oh, are there 2? Yes.
Permit and-
Yes, thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to do the site plan for the dwelling at 5 West Elm, the special permit associated with 5 West Elm. I'll consider that we just did the, let me clarify. How about we do that? How about we revote that? We will continue the hearing for the proposed site plan and unit changes for the units 21, 22, 23, 24, and the special permit for the dwelling unit at 5 West Elm to be July 22nd, starting at 8:30.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Sorry about the confusion. Thank you.
We will also need to request a continuation of the decision.
Yes, and when would that best be, Kobe
I
or
think we've
John?
been going a week after the hearing, so
Yeah.
it should, July 29th.
So an extension to July 29th?
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Do you want to walk us through some of the, I'm just thinking of the A&Rs if they are quick?
Yes, and also because they need to have a decision by tomorrow, so they can't.
So let's do that. Boom. Okay. 27 Missouri, we'll just start in order.
Joe, did you want to come up and present?
There's just 2, right? Hi, Joe.
Evening, Joe Marquardt, here on behalf of Carol Pontremoli. She's the trustee for the Bumps Realty Trust. She is trustee for the land of her late parents at 27 Reserve Street, down the end of Reserve Street. The family wants to deed the home, number 27, the homestead, to Carol's daughter Ashley. She's going to take what is Lot B on the plan in front of you, but the Realty Trust is going to retain parcel A.
Are there any issues or concerns?
No, on this one, there were no issues that were significant. Parcel A is designated a non-buildable lot, so that would satisfy the zoning issues with that. And I believe parcel B complies with all the zoning, so that.
Any questions? Concerns?
Just for clarity, I drove down there, but I couldn't, what makes it an unbuildable lot?
Insufficient frontage and insufficient area.
And lot area. So for A&Rs, you need to have sufficient frontage and lot area for it to be done. You don't have to comply with any other zoning because the endorsement doesn't specify that compliance with other zoning is needed, but if it doesn't comply with one or both, it's essentially a non-buildable lot and it has to be marked on the plan.
But I'm not sure why they're making a change, because there's no gain in, they could build one bigger house, they could.
There's an existing home at 27. Ashley would take that. The family would like to retain the land that is not necessary for that building lot. 27 has area and frontage in excess of the minimum, certainly meets all the requirements. We didn't want an issue with Town Hall, someone trying to give the impression that you could build something on parcel A, so we designated that as a non-buildable lot. It's simply land that the family wants to retain.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? I'll entertain a motion to approve the A&R at 27 Reserve Street.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, all set.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
And then we're going to do 134, 138.
Okay.
Take us away.
Okay, 134, 138 Old Town Road. Several lots, 8 lots from a plan from the 1930s. Owned, 2 families, 2 separate owners, own the parcels together. Number 138, the Demings would like to sell their home and relocate out of state. So we need to separate the two ownerships, excuse me, thank you, onto 2 separate lots. The Andersons will retain 134 where they live. The Demings will sell to a third party. In order to do that, we need to create a lot around the existing home. They are odd in shape, small in size, but because the parcels were owned in common ownership, the lots were in existence prior to the adoption of the subdivision control law. It's not considered a subdivision to separate those 2 out. So we have attempted to create Lot 1 that the Andersons will retain, Lot 2 that the Demings will sell. They're approximately the same size and shape, but they do not constitute a subdivision. So we need to separate those through the A&R process.
And they don't necessarily meet the guidelines for frontage and lot size?
Correct, because the lots were created prior to the adoption of the subdivision control law and zoning here in the town of Hopkinton.
So interesting that they're co-owned.
First time in 30-something years I've ever come across this.
All right, so it's not just new for me.
Exceedingly rare.
Exceedingly rare, okay.
Vacation homes.
Questions?
Yes, so the new buyer could technically pretty much knock down most of that house and build a new house.
If they choose to, yes. They'll have issues with construction, they'll have to meet certain setback requirements. Imagine the Board of Appeals would have to weigh in on a couple of those topics. So, but conceivably, yes, they could.
Anybody else? Did you have any issues beyond what we saw in our packet, John? I mean, just you explaining it to us. Okay.
No, so, yeah, the attorney
Did the research?
looked at as he was.
Tom, did you have anything you wanted to add, or?
No, Joe did a great job.
Okay, okay. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the A and R for 134, 138 Old Town Road.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, all set. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll just need to get these endorsed.
Signed
Before we do it,
before we
do you
leave.
want
Want to do it now or at the end of the meeting?
How many do you need, Kobe?
Pardon?
How many people do you need to sign it to? Do you guys want to just go over and sign those? That would be awesome. Can we approve minutes while they're signing?
No, because
Because what?
we haven't reviewed them, because we just got them today.
No, we got minutes from April 22nd and May 6th.
Sorry.
Yep, nope, that's
I have a
okay.
minor modification that I'll get to Kobe for
For-
22nd.
For the 22nd, okay. Does anybody willing to move the minutes with a minor adjustment from Deb to Kobe on April 22nd?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? I'll entertain a motion on the minutes from May 6th.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Another awesome job, Kobe, thank you very much. We'll see how Patrick measures up. No pressure to the new
No
guy.
pressure. Sure, no pressure.
So we do have those minutes, and you must have sent them to,
Everybody,
okay,
and
and,
CC them. too.
perfect.
And we had the May 2nd minutes done, they got lost in the shuffle, so they'll be in the next hearing. We didn't
Yeah, perfect.
advertise for them, but they're on Facebook.
Yep, perfect, so we'll have another couple of sets, okay. How about the discussion, I want Deb to be able to listen to this, we have a few minutes. The discussion on the mission statement that we got hot off the presses. Is this a new timeline too, Amy?
Here we go.
Yeah, a little bit.
Timeline.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Did that come to us and I just missed it?
I'm sorry, just
No.
today.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure.
Flurry of activity today.
Flurry of activity today. It's all right, I like it.
Flurry of paper.
Okay, I'm gonna just take a minute to read the mission statement. I don't know if other people have already done that. I thought I was reading the same thing. Went back and reread it.
So I can provide a little bit of
Yep.
commentary on this. And Rob, Mary, and I all had a chance to take a look at this. We had a
Awesome.
little bit of back and forth today.
Fair enough.
I think the big debate for us was really how detailed to get. And what we tried to do here was break out, the mission statement and something that was a little bit more mission-centric. And we wanted to capture, that first sentence is actually from the Vision 2015 document. We just thought it captures sort of the spirit of what we want to be in a fairly general sense. And then what happened was that some of I think within the deliverables, just as we sort of blurred everything together, we felt there were some objectives, some more specific objectives that were worth pulling out that kind of speak to the aim of what we were doing. And then the deliverables were really those specific documents, so to say, that would be an output of the process. So this is, in our eyes, very much still in draft form, and I apologize to not get it to people sooner. I know people are reading it for the first time now, but what we'd like to do is get your reaction to it, see if there is anything substantial or major that's missing, if there's anything in it that you don't think belongs, and then we can go ahead and finalize it for the next meeting. That's our goal.
I would, there's nothing wrong with it, it's a great start, thank you. I would like to add preservation of existing natural resources to the mission statement, if everybody else is amenable, or at least contemplate that. And then it may be captured in this, create a plan of action that includes cadence and deliverables. I love the little military reference. Awesome, awesome. For ongoing residential growth assessment. My sort of thinking out loud, big box thinking, I would like to make sure that we have some sort of actionable process for the major stakeholders in town to come together and assess the information, the impacts, and, the go-forward planning. So I think, all the major players are very invested. We just don't really have this structure to have the ongoing conversation over time.
So maybe what we can do is we can add that as a sub-bullet or something like that.
Does
And it's funny, because, Rob had some comments in it that were effectively, resource requirements and support from town staff, and it seems reasonable. To me, the key theme there is that it's a multifaceted committee of stakeholders that are a part of the ongoing process.
Yeah, I guess when I envision it, right, this is a major effort, which is awesome, right? It'll be a small band of dedicated volunteers, but that there's some go-forward process that's sustainable, actionable, and there's buy-in across.
So we would make that a number 5 on the deliverables.
I definitely think that for me, I'm just saying for me, having something that is sustainable over time is really important.
Yeah, so I would just push back. I think that does roll up for me under number 4, and I'd be hesitant to put it as a 5th one, just because, it's a deliverable, so a plan of action, I think, should incorporate those stakeholders and be involved. But
I'm totally fine as long as there's, I would advocate for, in one voice, I would advocate for some contemplation of the process that we think today is workable with the committees we have today, knowing that, in 10 years or 5 years, elections happen and boards change and people might have a different idea of the best process. But like the financial working group that started, eventually kind of shifted and disappeared.
Then if we were to add it to number 4, what I would take out would be the specific residential, and I would say the growth assessment that receives support from major stakeholders over time.
So it's a good point. We talked about that as well, and where I got hung up on it is that growth of what? So with residential growth, that's something that we can measure via dwelling units. If we're just talking about growth in the town, that kind of becomes more, I don't know how to define that.
It would be defined as residential and commercial, because one of the targets that I think we want to point at is the commercial development and how we can better bring in commercial people and businesses to promote a healthy environment. and how we can do that to sort of match our residential growth as well.
So would that be something that could be expanded upon in item 3? So in item 3, you contemplate identifying and prioritizing parcels and zones with the highest potential for residential growth, and recommend optimal land uses and practices for each of them. But there could certainly be necessary discussion about land uses that aren't necessarily on those big, scary, lovely open spaces.
Yes, so they can be,
and
industrial A and industrial B.
Yeah, we might contemplate ways, like one of the things, and I have no idea if it comes out of the meeting, but, because I get this opportunity, I say it, it might be the time to actually designate some funds to get a professional to help us populate the industrial sector with, more commercial possibilities. And it might be the time to talk about somebody who helps us really vitalize downtown. It's just something that could easily be part of the discussion.
So I'm just, go ahead, Amy.
Well, mine is another thing I wanted to add, but do you want to wrap up this part?
I guess I just, and I was torn on this. I'm curious to hear thoughts from other people on whether this should be focused specifically on, the hot button is really residential growth. And in so many ways, I wanted to include commercial as well, but then I just was worried it was getting bigger and less defined, and now we get into more financial models and tax, I was worried that it was creeping a little bit potentially beyond, I think, what we were trying to do. And I could go either way. I agree with Deb, and I think that there's a balance there, but I'm just curious to hear from other people if.
I wanted to add something if we can, or think about adding something about getting feedback from the public about where they want the town to go, particularly in commercial. What do they want the downtown to become? Do they want to be like Hudson, is their sort of revitalization, or some other towns have done downtown revitalization? Make sure we have that buy-in before we try to bring businesses in that turns out people don't want that type of business.
Right.
So I guess it's something vague, I guess, about public input is part of the deliverable.
Well, I think so. I definitely think as part of our process, we contemplated intentional outreach and public input, right?
I just don't see it listed.
I agree.
But I would argue that's not a deliverable.
No, it's not a deliverable, it's a tool or a process that the team itself would go through. And if we want to, it's really a question, as Gary said, of how specific are we trying to get here? Are we dictating everything that they're gonna do? And I don't think we are. I think that, part of it, when we're charging them with this mission is coming back and checking in with planning board every once in a while, tell us about your progress. And, it doesn't all have to be written down here. But speaking to the other issue of the commercial versus residential, I would say residential is most of the growth concern, but we need to express the financial assessment and so on and forecast about the balance and about the difference in the tax base versus cost, which we had in an earlier iteration and we talked about a little bit. And I don't think by simplifying this outline, in the last draft, I don't think you meant to eliminate that entirely. I think it's the balance between the residential and commercial growth that might need to be addressed. Then, yeah.
I think pretty strongly that from a land use perspective, we have to contemplate it, but I totally understand your point. It's why this is so hard to capture.
I guess what I'm concerned about is trying to, pretty soon this becomes it becomes master plan, it becomes selectman jurisdiction, it becomes, I just worry a little bit that it becomes, and so that's what I was going to say, is that if there's specific areas that, and maybe whether it be the large tracts or land, if there's ways that we can build that commercial growth consideration in.
Maybe this, I'm just throwing this out as an idea. So obviously we were very concerned about those potentially developable large tracts of land. But we're also have a focused interest on commercial development in the areas that are currently set aside for commercial development. And I think we also have a well-established pattern of interest from the residents, though I think it's a very important point that we don't necessarily know anymore what that specifically is. If we ever did, that residents would like the downtown to be more of a destination for some commercial shopping, eating, enjoyment.
So what if we do this? I'm wondering if it's worth adding a fifth deliverable that somehow incorporates the desire to expand our commercial base. And I'm a little hesitant on the downtown piece because we also had a downtown revitalization committee. I mean, there's been a lot of work that's gone into that, and I just don't want to be repeating things that have already been done, but.
My concern is that we have this huge tract that our forefathers gave us on South Street, and it's just so beneficial, and it's just, I just think it's a diamond in the rough, and we just need to figure out, like you said, Muriel, how can we better utilize it, and do we need resources to help us figure that out?
So what if we had going back to, we had a fifth bullet of recommendations, something to the effect of recommendations on how to increase or grow the commercial base within town, something to that effect?
Yes, you were going to say something? I'm nodding along.
So this was today's discussion is the balance between being too prescriptive and taking kind of the power out of any committee and basically saying do the X, Y, Z, and empowering a committee by trying to be broad enough that they have leeway to do certain things. A draft, like Mary said, prior draft was much more prescriptive, and it had some, like all the things you're talking about right now were incorporated.
Yeah.
And we kind of backed away. I could go either way, because I want whoever's working on this project to be empowered, but I also want an output.
Right. I'm totally nodding along, and this is the grand challenge. I also want to say that I really strongly agree with Amy that the best products we've ever gotten and the most workable products that we've ever gotten and the most buy-in we've ever gotten is when we are very intentional about community input. And for me, this whole effort really hinges on finding out what people would like us to be focusing on in particular. So, I mean, I don't necessarily know that it has to be the mission that there's community engagement, but there is certainly an expectation that there's going to be some very intentional community engagement. I feel pretty strongly that, did you, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. So two things that I wanted to just bring up is, I don't want to add more work to probably my plate, but there may be a deliverable that comes out of the public input, and it's just kind of a memo or summary of what the public has actually said, so that it's in writing in front of the committee. And maybe that's one of the first things that gets done, so that the committee kind of has a direction. The second one is, it's kind of part of number 3, where it's the forecast model, but one way to really put the fear of God in people is to do a build-out analysis. And for those of you who might not know what a build-out analysis is either the planning department or we hire a consultant basically looks at the land as it's zoned now, the parcels as it's set up now, and determines what could be built without a special permit as it stands. And it's usually a lot higher than people think. And so that's basically growth that you cannot control. It's done by right, and it's a good idea of what can be done based on the zoning that's in place and what's still available land. It is a significant undertaking, but it may be beneficial as a discussion point and kind of a picture moving forward.
John, so when you say it's a significant undertaking, what kind of time frame and how does one go about planning that?
So it could be done by a consultant. I don't know the scope at this point. I'd have to look into it. But it would be several thousand, several 10,000s maybe, depending on how detailed you want to get. Because you're really looking at every parcel and you're looking at the zoning and you're looking at development schemes on those parcels. Obviously, sorry, go ahead.
Just go back to the cost, is it tens of thousands or 100,000? 'Cause I mean, I look at what it costs us to assess the roof on a school, and that seems to cost $150,000, so I don't understand how this would be done
It depends on how
for.
detailed it can be, because you're looking, if you're doing it at a consultant rate, you're looking at billable time, and they're gonna be doing a lot of different analysis and stuff like that. So it's really hard to tell how much it's exactly gonna cost. I can try and find RFPs for that type of thing, to see what other towns have requested. But it can be, I mean, you can do pretty generic and it wouldn't take that long, and it could be cheaper. And that's kind of just whittling down, and it kind of builds into the priority parcels where, based on the zoning, you're taking out all the parcels that don't conform to zoning as it is. So those are gone, they can't be developed. And then trying to figure out, ones that might not be zoned for residential in a way that would add units, those can be taken out. And you can do a general one like that, or you can do really in-depth and look at individual parcels. The larger parcels, basically, how they can develop them with multiple units if possible, through the A&R process or anything like that.
See, and I would, to me, I think that's what we were trying to get at with deliverable number 2, is the forecast model of dwelling unit growth. And I guess maybe anticipated growth isn't necessarily build out, but it's probably worth establishing that, those bookends.
Yeah, so
Say-
I think build out is worst case scenario.
Yeah,
And how I read this is predictable.
that's fair.
But having that upper limit would be extremely valuable. I think it would, any point to make would be, well, this is predicted, like any sensitivity analysis you do,
Yeah.
like minimum, maximum, predicted, it's just what, so I'm 100% for it.
So, not to be a downer, we don't have money allocated for this effort. So it is something to think about, where we might find our resources or how we might find our resources if we're gonna do that. So it's worth knowing what it costs or what it might cost. And then,
There's grants, a grant perhaps that would.
yeah, and that, yes, right? I nod along enthusiastically, yes. But that is that's a time thing as well. So just, to sort of, throw it all into the pot to stir around and see, because we don't have money set aside for this specifically. We may have money, do we have any money in the planning board budget this year, or?
I'd have to look.
Yeah, I mean, there may be places where we could find some money. I don't know about a big effort, but that would be a thing we had to solve.
But knowing what it would cost, we could at least ask for money at a
Yep.
future year.
Yeah, yeah.
There's also the option of MAPC helping out. I don't know
Okay.
how much they
Yep.
can do and what the cost differential is.
So I feel like we're amenable, if you're willing to do the research, if those are, possible avenues, that would be really helpful.
So I'm kind of hearing 3 things that people want to include in this. One is something around public input, incorporating that in some way. The second is something around how we incorporate major stakeholders into the process. And then the third is something around, advocating or, maybe not advocating, it's not the right word, but
Recommending or?
recommendations around how we can balance our residential growth with commercial growth.
So I'm thinking maybe a deliverable of just a report of a summary of the public input received by the committee. That something we'll deliver at the end would be a summary of the various public input we'll do. It's a pretty easy thing
Yeah.
to deliver.
Yeah.
And people will know they've been heard and it's documented.
Yep.
Okay, seems fair. Anyone?
I definitely think that, well, I'm a huge proponent of public input and taking notes and remember what people said so that they know that people are actually
And just keep it
Yeah.
vague as report, that way we can decide, is it a survey, is it a forum, is it,
Yeah.
decide that later.
I haven't figured out how to incorporate that into the actual paragraph, sentence above for the mission statement, but somehow it'd be really nice if we could include that as well. A well-educated, healthy community, I don't know, mission of project, examine, growth trends.
We're gonna let the
Somehow,
the geniuses that got got
Yeah,
us this
somehow
far.
incorporate that public insinuation,
Well, does it-
public idea, incorporate it.
Does it work for you, Deb, if we added as a deliverable, a summary of public?
I'd just like to
concerns and
see
input?
it in the statement, as a part of the goal.
As a part of the mission statement, you mean?
As part of the mission statement, to actually see it in the wording somehow. I would have to
And
look
is
at
that
it
where
to
you wanted the
see.
natural resources too, Muriel?
Yeah, well, so the last
Sorry.
statement was standards in education, public safety, health, and recreation. I thought preservation of natural resources was
It says,
a
yeah.
good add in that line, to be honest.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna-
yeah,
It's
yeah,
at the
just-
beginning,
You know,
and I thought it,
I'm just gonna push back a little bit, because 5 is a lot. 4 is a lot for me. I always like rule of 3. So
For
I'm
your
wondering.
down here?
No, even for these up here.
yeah, well, I'm gonna push right back again, so. I just think that this community
I think
honestly
But-
prizes its natural resources. We're a community of lakes and trees.
I think,
I don't deny that, but the purpose of the mission is to guide the process, and if we give them 5 different things we're trying to preserve, then that, it gets harder to balance that out.
Well, which one would you get rid of rather than pull
I
from
think-
natural resources?
So I think that's why our previous iteration, previous version of this type of attempt used the term rural character to summarize 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yes,
type of thing.
to wrap it all in.
I think it's.
Yes.
There are other plans in town that might deal with things that you guys want to include in this, the open space plan being one
Yes.
of them. And I think that's going to be up for renewal in like a year or two. So that may be something that could take that natural resources part off of this committee's plate, and there can be a liaison from the growth committee to the open space update plan committee, or some back and forth on that if you're looking for something to do.
And again, I'm okay including it. I just want to make sure that,
Yeah, I get you. I do.
that we're being as targeted as we can here.
Yeah, and
If I may point out, natural resources is mentioned in the first line.
It is.
So,
I would go ahead and get rid of recreation and put in preservation of natural resources if I had to pick.
Okay.
I really believe that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I really believe that this town is focused on, not recreation as well, but it is a part of the balance of our growth and our tax base and our health and safety and.
Okay. Is everyone
Product.
okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I have kind of a place to put the townwide. I think the mission of the project is to have a townwide examination of growth trends and development. Would something like that work? Townwide,
examination.
yeah, something to that matter. Maybe there's somebody who can wordsmith that a little bit better. But I like the idea of it just being very open and inclusionary. And I think the second sentence might be the location to do that.
I was thinking the same thing.
Okay, good. Like mine's.
Brilliant. Any other feedback on that before we scamper forward to the timeline? What's our next meeting is 24th, and it's full? Because I was noticing you were going right by it. Can you just run down the agenda really fast for the 24th?
We have continued public hearing for Buckland and Leonard, the I-90, I-495 presentation,
How much time do we have for that?
half an hour.
Okay.
The Wilson Street drainage issue with Warren McDowell, engineer,
How much time do we have for
30
that?
minutes.
Okay.
Special permit for 9B Street for historic structures. An affordable housing discussion with REC Hopkinton about the Chamberlain Whalen.
Okay, and what time is that?
That's at 9:30.
9:30, and we have a half hour for that?
There's no designated time because it goes to the end. We end at 10. There is also the Haynes Farm as-built plan request for bond release on that schedule.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we do have some discussion points. I'm thinking in terms of the master plan discussion that we keep putting off. Amy, who worked on the timeline? Amy and Deb?
So actually, Deb worked on it this time. I had started it this
Okay.
Yeah.
What does it look like?
I sort of upped the ante a little bit, and we're a little bit behind the 8 ball, but, I was hoping a kickoff meeting, but I think we need to work on a letter, an invitation letter, to all those that would be interested, to make sure we get, a nice sampling from across the community. So that would have to happen this week. Get that letter mailed out, and so maybe we're already behind the 8 ball. If the kickoff meeting for the 17th, I think, would be a bit.
Are you meeting with the new committee?
Yeah, that would be, that would
So
be
we have to post the positions for a certain amount of time, and then we have to appoint them. Our next meeting is the 24th, so we're definitely behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, so I think,
Are we at the point today where we could send something out?
Yeah, I would like to make sure we post the positions, yeah, I agree.
And how long is there a time limit that we need to post them for at least 2
It
weeks?
is, and we should all know this, because we all monkeyed around with it pretty aggressively not too long ago. Kobe, do you know how long the positions have to be posted for?
Which ones are those?
If we're forming a new committee,
Yeah.
we're advertising for people to apply. Do you know how long they have to be posted for? I don't think it's 2 weeks. I think it's like 10 days. I don't know.
So if we could,
look at an example of when.
We could probably look it up in the charter right this second, on our Smarty Page. Do you want to try and look it up? Thank you.
if we could post it this week, maybe we could appoint at our next meeting?
Yeah, so that.
Really nice if we could do that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we're pushed out till July
Yeah.
22nd.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, I'll
Is
check.
our next meeting after that, July 22nd?
Yeah, I will not be here next time.
what's our next meeting?
I'm sorry.
I will not be here on June 24th.
Okay. Our next meeting after June 24th is?
We have July 8th, March.
Yeah.
July 8th, okay.
But, we may have to bump Dave again. The 495 thing. I think we should try and
We should-
appoint next week.
Yeah,
Next meeting.
but we should definitely not bump Dave too far back, because
I know.
those are
Maybe
kind of,
I was being a little facetious, I know.
but yeah, stay a little bit late, start a little bit early so that he can,
Let's contemplate starting at 7, that meeting. That's a really good idea, Deb. Thank you for that. If that's okay with everybody. You will not be here? No, okay.
My first miss.
But we understand how it happens.
June 24th or July 8th?
This is June 24th is the next meeting.
I will not be here either.
Ooh, the plot thickens. I still think, is everybody still comfortable shooting for appointing?
Yes.
On the 24th? Thank you. Okay, appreciate that. So, given that, and I think then the timeline needs to be reworked anyway, we can talk about that. We should give a little guidance on the posting. Can somebody refresh me what the makeup of the committee was? I have the notes here somewhere, but it was Chamber of Commerce.
2 planning board members.
2 or 3 planning board members?
2 with 2, I'd have to go back and look.
2
again.
alternates?
2 alternates.
And 4 at large? Is that what we said?
3 at large and
2 planning board, 2 chamber or business.
2 chamber.
2 chamber.
And
So-
two alternates, which
So it came out to 9.
2 alternates.
7, but 2 alternates, so
7,
9.
9, yeah. Well, we want to
Hold on,
also
I'm sorry,
encourage.
my math didn't work. 2 Chamber of Commerce, 2 planning board member, 4 at large?
3 at large.
3 at large, that's why the math
And
didn't
2
work.
alternates.
And 2 alternates,
And
okay.
with the alternates encouraged to attend.
Well.
Because I think that's,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a tough thing. When you're an alternate, you kind of slack a little. So if we encourage alternates in name only, however, hopefully taking a big part
So
as well.
we're gonna expect that people are gonna just do it. I'm all for encouraging, but
Okay.
Yes, because if you're an alternate, right, on a committee and somebody isn't there, you can have a voting percent, you know, you get a chance to vote and not that voting is the whole thing, but you are a functional member of the committee. Okay, so, what are we calling this?
I think we said growth study committee.
Study committee?
2019 Growth Study Committee.
Study committee. The two Chamber of Commerce members
Strike
need
2019 because this,
to live in town. Was there any other,
I don't know if we said they had to be chamber members, but just members of the business community, chamber or business community, or did we?
we said chamber recommendations.
Chamber recommendations.
Chamber recommendations.
But however, living in Hopkinton.
Living in, yes, that's,
Yes.
makes sense.
That's okay. Interest.
all right, two planning board members, three members from the community at large, and two alternates. Okay, so, do you feel comfortable putting some language again around a posting with that information, or do you want some? Okay. Did you find the
I did not.
posting guidelines?
Checking the bylaws, because I didn't seem to see it in the charter, so.
Can I
A question about the
Yeah,
chamber
okay.
position. Do we need to reach out to the chamber to get their recommendations, and then
So,
how does
So
that?
what typically happens, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is that when we reach out to the chamber for their recommendation, those people are on the committee as long as they meet our guidelines. We don't particularly vote
So we
on
don't
that.
need to, do we need to advertise for those positions, or is it really
The zoning bylaws.
chamber, essentially a chamber appointed position?
You know, I would advertise the structure of the whole committee in the language, and that we are essentially interested in applicants for the 3 at-large and 2 alternate positions, because the chamber appointees will not go through the process. But this will let people know what the structure of the committee is intended to be. Can I ask another question? I know a couple people are missing. Is there particular interest on the planning board to be the planning board designees?
I would be interested in being one of the designees.
I would be interested as
So
well.
you had also said master plan, right?
Yeah, I'd like to look at, but not right away. I'd like to look at the master plan. I have to digest it first, but I would like to look at it and how we can incorporate what we learned from this study so that we'll have some kind of input. But that would be a little bit later.
I would suggest respectfully that only one of the two of you participate in the growth committee, and we choose another member, not me. So just based on, you had certain thoughts, it's just to get diversity of thought processes and so on. And that doesn't mean the other person couldn't attend every meeting.
Yeah,
No, 100%. I have a tendency to agree, particularly just the dynamics of the 3 proponents of the moratorium. And we don't know how Dave feels about potentially being interested. I am really interested, and we don't know
That's fine.
about Frank, too. But I have a tendency, everybody is welcome, right? These are all open public meetings, and everybody is welcome.
Oh, I can understand that.
But I have a sense similar.
I have a lot to do, so
Yeah.
I have a lot of work to do.
I'm not
so-
trying to shove you out of the nest.
I've got more work on my desk than, so that's totally, I mean.
So we should, maybe, if you don't mind reaching out to Dave and Frank, just to let them know we're also interested in engaging their enthusiasm for participating. And I'm looking down to my left and to my right, too. I'm very bad at getting to my left sometimes. I'm going to have you sit over here from now.
left-handed, it's fine.
We really do have to have somebody sort of spearhead the master plan implementation.
How do you envision that? 'Cause
So
I'm-
it's just, there is a master plan that was written in 2017 with deliverables and a an action plan.
Okay.
And we are the primary owner of it, although we are not the deliverable on all action
yeah.
items. But I think we have a
was
very
reading that.
real responsibility for tracking.
I can spearhead that if you'd like me to do that. I can do that. I can step aside on this, but still stay involved and, you know, and
Well, think
spearhead
about-
something else.
Think about it. That would be great if that's true. But think about it a little bit. But I think we really do need one or two people to really drive us on the master plan initiatives.
I just want to go back to the posting.
Yes.
I did find some info.
Yep.
Okay, so I can't find specifically on subcommittees of the planning board, but just in general, if there's a vacancy, the board and committee notifies the Board of Selectmen, and then they give notice of 1 week about when the date of the vote will happen.
Okay. So in this case, the selectmen aren't doing the appointing.
They're
But the
not.
1 week.
But the only
we
vacancy
should-
reference I could find in the charter was
but we
about, so
should use the same process.
So
it seems like at least a week notice.
So my question, it feels like the mission statement and deliverables would be really helpful to include with the posting, because that way people sort of
agree.
know what they're getting into.
I agree.
The challenge is, I'm just trying to think if there's some way that we can finalize this and use it, but I don't know how we do that without
Well,
having to wait until the next meeting.
Let me ask this. I have a great deal of comfort in having Gary finish this with our feedback and forward it to John for use, but I don't know how other people feel.
It's fine by me, I just,
I'm okay with that, yeah.
I think we know what we want to include in it,
Yeah,
and maybe
thank you
then
for that.
John can edit or push back if there's something I've missed or something that can be redone, that we can kind of,
Yeah,
I can just
I agree.
work with him on that.
And then we can get the posting. The posting should be up for at least a week, so we have plenty of time. I mean, not so much plenty of time to get this done and get it out there, but we should be able to do it by our 24th meeting.
I mean, I'll talk to his clerk and his board selectman just to make sure that everything is fine. And
Yep.
if it's
Yep.
not how it's perceived at this point, I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Okay, so,
And
and
then
then,
run out of time to discuss the timeline, but I can, you know, send comments electronically.
yes. Is that okay, Deb? And
I'm
we'll
sorry.
send some comments
The timeline?
electronically.
Yeah.
Sure, yep.
Draft.
Yeah,
You're
sure.
allowed to do
I
that?
didn't really have any. Last week.
It's,
It's just
if
timeline.
Everybody sends, it's Deb,
Yeah,
everybody sends ideas to you about the timeline,
okay.
and you do not send feedback back to anybody. It's all one-way communication to you for you to process and put into the timeline however you
As
see
long as I
fit.
can.
Yep.
If I find a stumbling block, I will let people know. As long as it's.
You cannot discuss over email. You can receive their information,
Okay.
and then when we talk about it next, you can point
I
out the
mean, I
stumbling
can
block.
always,
You can
if I have a
certainly
question, I
utilize
can ask John.
Mhm.
That's fine.
Totally. So if you have burning desires for the timeline, shoot them in one way, copy John.
One point about the posting, are we looking for resumes and cover letters?
So typically there's a form, what do we
There
look
is that
for?
online form. I don't know if we can get on the Acela. What did he?
There's
People are
like
applying
a
for-
statement of interest for town volunteer. There's some standardized,
It's not doesn't really feel like it asks, I don't feel like it asks for a
lot,
lot, though.
yeah. I feel
I mean-
like
I mean,
asking for resumes and cover letters is a little.
I don't think a resume is necessary, but it would be nice to have them.
A
I mean,
letter of
maybe it's-
interest?
Maybe it's even, 200 words or less, why are you interested? I mean, just one question, something to that effect. Put a constraint on it so that people aren't submitting a 3-page paper on what they want to do. It's just, in 200 words, why are you interested?
And what skills do you bring?
So right now,
What skills do you?
the board and committee
Why interested, what makes you
vacancies
qualified?
form is up. People can apply online to be on a board or committee. Can we just get on that same online form? Do you think?
I'll have to ask, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we can utilize a process that exists, it doesn't ask a lot. But we can ask people, we're gonna interview people when they come. Presumably we'll have more people interested than we have spots for. And those will be good questions. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
So this interview process is gonna be on the 24th?
It is.
How much time do we allow for that?
So we talked about starting at 7.
Okay.
So, if memory serves, why don't we do it at 7? We'll do it at 7.
If we have, say, 8 people applying, that's gonna take well more than an hour to interview them.
We only have half an hour to start at 7.
What's at 7:30 is 76 Main?
Buckle and Leonard.
Buckle and Leonard.
Well, if
Let's,
we-
you know what, let's do it at 7, because let's do it at 7. And you and I will touch base on the agenda, and we'll figure out how it's gonna work.
If we get their information ahead of time, it can go out to the committee, so that would.
It will
go out to the
necessarily
meeting.
go out to the committee, yeah.
And perhaps 10 minutes per person, if everybody's read up on who's doing what, with a couple questions, maybe we can take 10 minutes per
Well,
person.
there you go, that's an hour and a half. Just in your scenario, they can.
40 minutes?
Do we have to interview everybody, or can we do final candidates that we interview?
10, 20.
Well,
Everybody?
we typically throw the gates open and we welcome all comers.
I mean, we're welcome, we just
So how's this? We're gonna
narrow
find out,
down.
we'll find out how many people, there's a deadline for when you can apply by, right? So we impose a fixed deadline, which would be, you have to post it for at least 7 days. Is that what you said, 7 days?
We think, yeah.
Or we think,
Yeah.
that makes sense. And, we would hopefully have, I guess it would have to be like, the deadline would have to be the Friday before the Monday meeting. It couldn't be the Tuesday.
So I
that
assume
scenario.
that 7
Thursday.
days does not include weekends?
Exactly.
So the if we go backwards from the 24th, 7 days would be the 13th, would be when they could start applying, or is when it would be posted, so that gives us essentially 2 days.
But we'd have to have a deadline before the meeting.
Yeah, so basically we'd have to post it tomorrow or Wednesday.
So
to give
we're
one
looking
day
at
or 2 days.
we're looking at the first meeting in July, realistically, right?
Which is
So
coming
if we
off of
posted
the-
it on, if we posted it on the 12th and accepted applications through the 21st, is that not enough time?
Well, if we accepted applications to the 21st, that would give Monday to review.
What's that?
That would give Monday to review.
Yes.
So if you wanted more than one day to review.
Excuse me one second, I'm going to entertain a motion to open the public hearings on Whisper Way
Make a
and to
motion.
continue them after we conclude this brief discussion.
I would make that motion. Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? We'll be right with you. Thank you. Go ahead. Did you finish, or?
So I was just saying, if we wanted more than one day to review, because we close at 2 on Friday, so I wouldn't be able to send anything out
Right,
at the
okay.
end of business on Friday. So you guys wouldn't have the weekend. I mean, I could send the ones that we've received, but I don't think that would be fair to anyone who submits at the end.
Are we meeting July 8th or not? Or not
Yeah.
because of
Yes.
the holiday weekend? We are.
Yeah.
So, I'll just throw one other thing out there. I have, at least once anyways, applied for a subcommittee.
Yep.
And their interviews were not at their meetings. It was a separate interview process.
In town?
Yep.
Meeting July.
It's for
What
the,
subcommittee?
it was for the athletic turf field subcommittee. I remember because I was in Tokyo at the time, so I did my interview by phone with, it was D. King, it was somebody from, it was a subcommittee of the school committee. And so I just throw it out there because as we're trying to move fast here, and I realize
Our time is short, yeah.
I realize we want to keep everything within our open meetings and whatnot. I just don't know if there's another option, and that's where I was thinking, even if we were somehow able to narrow finalists down and then the finalists come in, or if there was some way to keep this moving a little bit more efficiently. And I don't know how people feel about it, what's appropriate and what's not, but maybe there's some option to advance it outside of our meeting schedule.
I feel pretty strongly that the established process for posting and interviewing and appointing volunteers for something like this is the best way to go.
So could
I'm
we,
a big fan of complete transparency.
You are?
I am.
I do think we should streamline our interview process in that case, since our meetings are so packed.
Yep. So maybe have a designated set of questions that everybody answers,
Yeah.
which we would want to do anyway. What do you mean by streamlining?
I don't know, sometimes if we each ask a question and everybody goes around, that's really time consuming, and I don't know if it really changes our mind either. So maybe either a super small number of questions, or just have everybody introduce themselves, and I guess until we know who applies, it's really hard to say, too.
Maybe we don't ask questions. Maybe we
Maybe just have them.
respond, they have 2 minutes, and they make their, just no different than a debate or meet the candidates night. There's a time constraint, and they make their case, we give them an idea of what we're looking for, and then we vote.
There's kind of three possibilities. There's less candidates than we'd hope for.
Right.
There's about what we'd hope for, and there's the exceeding amount. And what would we do in those three options?
Right.
Like if it's less, it'd go quick. If it's about what we expected, fine. But if it's more, it's just gonna derail a whole, basically from now till, like it's not gonna quicken the process, it's gonna make it longer. So I look at it as, we're potentially setting ourselves up for a failure by having, like, to pick candidates the next meeting. Like,
Yeah, so July 8th seems more reasonable.
Totally.
if we had all the applicants in by the next meeting, and we could know how to prepare, I think that'd be the logical thing to do.
And we're also assuming they can all be here on
Yeah,
July
that's
8th,
right.
the Monday after a holiday week.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, we are not going to be able to necessarily entertain everybody's schedule Monday, July 8th, right, who are applicants. So put that in how about this? We make sure people know in the posting that the interview process will be on July 8th, so that they're forewarned. And maybe we make the applicants due by the 22nd, so we have them at our meeting. We know the number.
That's
at-
great. Then we
at
can
the-
determine the process
And we
depending
can
on if it's a
determine
huge
the
number.
process on the 22nd? Okay. Does that make sense, John?
Applications would be due June 21st, Friday or the Saturday?
They can come in on Monday by 2.
4th?
Yeah, the 24th, I'm sorry. Monday by 2, and then you'll at least know the number. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we can set our process. Okay, all right. Thank you for your patience. Whisper away. This is...
Is this new material?
Or was it in our,
When was it? June 10th?
so we might have that.
Yeah.
I think you should have both of these.
Yeah.
The
I was
first is
just-
the
List of
waivers.
waivers.
Okay.
We have both of these, yeah.
Okay.
A pack.
Thank you.
So, good evening, my name is Elizabeth Minini from Gary and Hellman. I was involved in this project actually way back when we were doing the preliminary. And then I've been overseeing it with Dan, who has been here at the other meetings. Since Phil couldn't be here tonight, I thought we should try to focus on, not necessarily focus on his letter, since that's not as helpful, and to focus on the things that we want to make sure that the board is doesn't need any additional information from us on. So the list of waivers is one of the things that we want to make sure that the board is comfortable with all of the waivers. So if we want, we can go through them one by one. The first one is fairly straightforward, cross sections of the road. This is waived in a lot of towns nowadays. It's the way everything works with construction. It's just not as necessary to do the cross sections. It's not needed in the process of construction the way it used to be. So Phil had asked us to provide 4, which we intended on, and I believe we've already sent over to him, and we're just waiting for final approval from him on those. So that's just a procedural thing.
Why don't we do them one at a time, and we'll let people ask questions. Does anybody have questions on the first waiver request? So Phil has asked for 4.
Correct.
Which you intended to provide.
We have provided to him. He has not had a chance to review them yet.
Tell me why they are no longer needed in the way that roads are constructed now?
So everything, basically all the information that we need, or that the contractors need, is in the computer. We have it in the computers. It was really something that was needed back before we could easily provide that information. So they would use it to do cut and fill analysis and things like that. And the computers do all that fun stuff now.
All right. Might be something to look at, huh? Anybody else have questions?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, did Beta agreed that they were not necessary?
He agreed that we should, or he requested only 4 of them.
Yeah.
And basically that's to give you what a typical cross-section would give you. And I know that he's picked those specific spots for a reason. The first 3 are in that wetland crossing area.
Mm-hmm.
So just to, again, kind of give you a better idea of what the cut and fills are gonna look like in that area.
Mary?
Thank you. On Beta's letter of June 6th, he just said that the cross-sections that have been provided thus far on the detail sheets are not clear. So you have this comment from him.
Yep, we've actually already revised them.
Okay.
And so resubmitted them to him. And again, we're just looking, just to make sure that they're exactly what he is looking for.
Good.
So we're very confident that that's not a problem for us to meet his requirements. It's just a matter of whether or not you guys are going to be looking for all of the cross-sections or not.
Okay, number 2.
Trees to be retained within the right-of-way. As you all know, I think you've all walked the site. It's a pretty steep site, and in particular because of the wetland crossing, or the existing wetland crossing of Whisper Way. In order to bring that right-of-way into compliance, there's I guess enough grading that's going on that we're really grading the total width of the right-of-way. So there's really no opportunity for us to save trees within the right-of-way. Obviously, it's open space subdivision, we're gonna save as many trees as we can, but that's gonna be outside of the right-of-way. So since we're not able to really save any trees in the right-of-way, we're just asking for a waiver that we don't have to show the trees that we can't save.
Anybody have any questions?
So, I guess a couple of questions or comments on that. So, remind me again, how wide is the right-of-way?
I believe it's a... It's 50 feet wide.
50 feet wide. And so I understand in particular where there's substantial grading going on and that there's some work to do outside of the roadway width, but in parts of the development that are not as steep, there's no opportunity, I guess I mean, that bylaw exists because we generally like neighborhoods much better that have some mature trees, and it adds a lot to the look and feel and the rural character that we talk a lot about. And so I guess I'm struggling a little bit as to why no trees within the entire street can't be preserved.
The way that we can see what can or can't be saved is within the right-of-way lines. The grading that, and these are minimum, actually, we're grading, that's another waiver that we're asking for. Grading within the right-of-way is required to be 3-to-1, and we're actually grading it at 2-to-1 to try and skinny it down as much as we can. But even at 2-to-1, the grading, you can see over here, comes all the way over to these grade lines, come all the way over to the edge of the right-of-way. So even in the areas where it's not as steep, because we have to carry minimum and stay under maximum grading, you basically are catching up with, so it would be nice if we could be, the existing Whisper Way is really steep within this area, much steeper than we're allowed to be with the new regulations. So we have to shallow this out, which means that this gets steeper, even if right now it's not quite as steep. We're steepening it because we got to make up the difference. Is the best I can.
Okay. So because you can't follow the natural contours of the land, you have to disturb more soil, which means you have to effectively eliminate all the trees in the right-of-way.
Yes. I can see if there's any areas, but I mean over here we're well outside of the right-of-way with the contour. So
Are there some areas around the cul-de-sac?
no, that's in the cul-de-sac we're way out.
Oh.
Because the maximum grade in the cul-de-sac has to be less than in the rest of the road, so by flattening out a large area like that, you're creating more grading outside of it.
So I'll just ask one more question on this. So have you considered at all replacing some of those trees with new trees?
I'm in areas where it's not, where we don't have 2-to-1 grading. We could potentially do that. You're not going to get any vegetation you're not going to get a tree. It's not a good situation to put a tree in on a 2-to-1 slope. Shrubbery works well on a 2-to-1 slope, but not a tree. One of the other things, just, to follow with you don't want to just have a big wide open
runway.
Yeah. Almost all of these houses are going to be set back significantly from the road. And we're looking at common driveways for most of these lots. So we're cutting down on the driveways by half almost. And their existing vegetation all in the front of the house lots is going to remain.
You don't have the same grading issues on the driveways?
There are less stringent requirements for the driveways. They're not as wide. I know we're working, that's one of Phil's comments, is we have to do profiles for and grade out all the driveways. So that's something we'll know a little bit better when we complete that task. But
Can I just ask, is this a function of the challenging site more than anything and utilizing the road piece that exists?
Well, yeah, utilizing the road, the existing Whisper Way is certainly part of the challenge, because it goes up through a very steep area. Whereas if we were doing something from scratch, we may come, you know, we'd have to get up past the wetlands and the vernal pool, but you may come across more parallel, I couldn't get the word, parallel to the contours as opposed to continuing up perpendicular to them.
Just a clarifying question. So if I'm reading it correctly, they're not required to retain any trees in the right-of-way because it's not a scenic road. They're just asking for not having to list the ones.
Say it again?
They're not really required to retain any trees in the right-of-way because it's not a scenic road. They're just asking for a waiver from having to show them on.
No,
Right?
it's the waivers from retaining them in the right-of-way, right?
That's not the way it's written.
What does it say here? Trees to be retained within the right-of-way to be shown. Due to the narrow width of the right-of-way, the required grading for the roadway, no trees will be able to be retained within the right-of-way. So
Right.
what is the
Requirement
requirement?
is to show which ones will be retained, I think.
Right.
Like, I wanted to clarify with John.
Pull up the requirement.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
So I'm worried that we're overthinking this.
I can look into this if you want to move on to the next topic.
So it's not even a waiver then?
Well, it's a waiver on the requirement for the trees, that's what I'm saying. Well, right, is it really even a waiver? No. If
What
we
is the
can't
re-
save any trees,
What is the requirement for the trees in the right-of-way? Is there a requirement?
that's what he's checking.
Yeah. You're always clarifying, like. Well, he's looking, can we do the, proposed streetlights?
Yeah, so then the next one is location of the proposed streetlights. The applicant is requesting that streetlights not be installed within the subdivision. That's, again, that's something that boards have tended to go back and forth on.
I'm
over
comfortable
time.
with no streetlights myself, but.
So,
Just go either way on this one. I like it to be safe that somebody can walk their dog at night and, you know, find their way. But at the same time, I don't want to
Headlamps,
light
Amy,
pollution.
come on now, headlamps.
But then we had the situation at Davenport Lane where the developer just installed more lights because people were complaining that they had to walk their dogs with headlamps, right? And then they installed something that wasn't dark sky compliant, and we had to
Right.
approve it after fact.
Well,
So
is
I'd almost rather approve dark sky compliant streetlights. I don't know, but I can go either way if people feel.
So,
strongly.
can we waive it and also, but, you know, make sure we add the requirement that if lights were to be considered, that have to be dark sky compliant? I don't know, can we do that?
I know. Because I think what happens often when there are no streetlights, that homeowners install a light at the end of the driveway.
Yep.
Which, I don't know if that would be required to be dark sky compliant if they install it later.
Still America.
Yeah.
Can we add this to the ZAC list of potential things? Because I feel like we
We're back to
are,
lighting.
Oh, believe me, it's on there.
I know, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think that I think that we as a board have made some assumptions, and I don't, to Amy's point, I don't know if, I mean,
Davenport wasn't a great example for sure, right?
But we did have a discussion about it, and it is still on the work plan. There's some strong feelings.
I guess, you know, specifically to streetlights.
Streetlights in
Yeah, no,
subdivisions,
that-
strong feelings, huh?
Strong feelings, yeah, about dark sky compliant and things like that.
On both sides, I imagine?
Yeah, because I'm like, you know, I think really black streets are hard to navigate at night.
So stay off my street.
it is a dead end, with very, you know, there's a maximum of 10 houses. And most of these people, even when they get to their driveways, are gonna still have quite a ways to go without streetlights. So, I don't know that, and the existing Whisper Way doesn't have any streetlights, so, regardless of, you know, how you would look at a typical requirement, I think in this particular case, it probably makes more sense than normal to not have it. If you're putting in a full subdivision with, you know, 50, 60 houses, you know, that, and you have multiple intersections, that's a different scenario, I
Just to
believe.
take the flip side of it, we're going to have, you know, potentially a very long cul-de-sac with very long shared driveways. And from an emergency response standpoint, that could be challenging. It might be worth asking the fire department, too, how they feel about it.
Okay.
Look at me arguing the other way. I like my dark sky.
I mean, you just can't know how the future homeowners will prefer it
You
either.
can't. No, you
Some people
can't.
would prefer completely dark and some
And
would like light.
most likely, some of the people there will want it and some people
Yes,
won't.
right, so we can't win.
You really
That's
can't.
why you go out there with the flashlight and shine it on the sensor and shut it off. I mean, these kids.
That's right. There you go.
Well, I
What
might,
did we find out?
So that section is the definitive plan contents, and it just basically is what you are to include in the definitive plan.
Is what trees are going
It
to
says
be
location,
retained?
variety, and size of proposed street trees and trees to be retained within the right-of-way.
I feel like that is a waiver that doesn't need to happen because they're not retaining trees in the right of way. Does that make sense?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with
Look
the
at that.
interpretation.
One right off your list. It wasn't quick, it wasn't pretty, but it happened. Okay. Thanks, Amy.
So with the lights, is the board's feeling that you would pretty much go with whatever the recommendation of the,
I think you have a mixed response from the board, but I think, sorry, but I think that it would go a long way to find out what the fire department thinks about the whole thing, including the lighting for response, for me.
Would it be useful to take a straw poll? Because I don't really have a sense of how we feel on it. I don't know.
A straw poll of whether or not we want lights or don't want lights?
Because if I'm the only one that wants them, we can just say we don't need them, right?
We can take a straw poll. Lights or no lights?
I live in a subdivision, Haynes Farm Way, we have no lights, so if the homeowner wanted a light, it's up to you to put it in, so, no lights.
Even though I prefer lights, I think we have generally waived them, so I would not suggest we change that precedent right now.
100% no lights.
I'm pretty much a no light person myself.
Well, I think Mary makes a good point, but I still prefer dark sky compliant streetlights.
I like a certain percentage of light. I think that some of the neighborhoods that we have, the street lights don't compensate for the entry location of entering safely and exiting safely. So I would say at the end of the street, I would think is ideal, and it's an easy place to put a light. Even just to identify the street itself and the street sign. I'm a little concerned that however much we like dark sky compliant, we have these humongously long driveways that are very narrow, and they're all gonna wanna have lights. And the houses are gonna have lights. So whether we provide them on the streets or not, they're gonna have lights. So I suggest at least at the end of the street, to have some kind of wayfinding device.
Okay, so I think I would prefer some streetlights, but I think the arguments are reasonable, so if I'm the only one, then I think.
I would actually make sure you ask the fire department how they
yeah, no,
feel. This is
certainly we will, but.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm 100% no lights, but if the fire department says, wow,
Right.
we're gonna struggle in there, I'm gonna think it through differently.
Of course.
It's also right next to the highway, too.
So no lights unless the fire chief.
If you remember doing that.
That's exactly.
Okay.
What's that?
No lights unless the fire chief says we need them, right?
Yes,
Well, the
I think
highway
that's the
doesn't-
decision right
Highway
there.
doesn't affect It only affects the
and-
farthest right house, the ones that are, which is added is 11 and 12.
Yeah.
So waived unless,
It's a
fire
sound
department.
alarm.
All right, road slopes, 3-to-1 max, you talked about that already, anything more?
Nope. Like I said, we're trying to minimize the impact of taking down any trees that we don't have to. So the 2-to-1 slope is not something that we prefer to do. But it is an acceptable practice, and from an engineering standpoint. So.
Anybody have any questions or objections to that one?
What did Beta say about this one?
You know what?
They just asked to define the limits where this is necessary, and Beta has determined that they have provided those limits.
Okay.
Are we okay? Disturbance in natural topography due to the wetlands at Station 1+50. Depths of fill are greater than 8 feet to facilitate the crossings. Talk to us.
So, again, this is actually partially due to the fact that the existing Whisper Way does not meet the grading, maximum grading requirements. So, in order to, basically it comes down too steep and then comes up too steep. So, in order to maintain the existing right-of-way and meet the new grading requirements, we have to fill more than 8 feet. That fill is limited to the right-of-way only. That's where we have the retaining wall. So we're not, drastically changing the grade, except for making the entrance safer and to meet current standards.
All right, and Concom, it is on board with this?
This is the...
It's from them?
It would be, yes. They definitely do not want us filling more wetlands.
Right.
To be able to create slopes.
Right. So, okay. Anybody, questions, concerns? I feel like you have a go on that one, too. What's number 6? Oh, disturbance in natural topography, again.
So, again, part of this is just staying within the existing right-of-way. The existing road goes through some areas that are over 25% slope, and then once we get to the end of the existing, which I don't know exactly where that is, but once we get to the end of the existing Whisper, there's another steep area that, in order to use the existing road, we need to continue off the end of it. It puts us into areas that have 25%. We avoided them to the greatest extent possible, and at some point in the process, we did show you, and Phil had asked for a plan that showed where the areas of 25%, greater than 25% slopes were, so that he could see that we were staying out of them to the greatest extent possible. So we did do it to the greatest extent possible, and we're just asking for a waiver for the areas where we couldn't avoid it.
Any questions?
Just to clarify, this is always going to be a private street, not a town street?
Town Street.
It is a town street. So those slopes are something that DPW is going to have to deal with.
But it's not the road itself?
No, it's not the
land that the road
It's
is
the
being built across?
it's the existing road, goes through areas, no, the new road is gonna go through areas that have an existing slope of 25%. They will not be 25% once we're done.
Got it.
Perpendicular to the road.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Number 7, go ahead. the side slopes of the detention ponds?
So again, the detention ponds, typically we do 3-to-1 slopes. We're tightening up all the grading by doing 2-to-1 slopes, and maintaining the top of the berm at 10 feet so that the detention basins are just as accessible as they're supposed to be. We speak about an impervious core. So one of the concerns that Phil had with us going to the 2-to-1 slope was the migration of water from the through the berm. So to prevent that from happening, we are installing an impervious, basically an impervious barrier in the center of the berm, vertical. It's the same thing we do for septic systems when we can't meet the 3-to-1 slope that is required for those. So
Can you show us where that is on the plan?
Well, so this detention basin, you can see that this is a steep slope. Is that the only detention basin? So when the water's in here, basically, once you get to the top of the berm, which is right in here, basically right where this dashed line is, that's basically where the impervious barrier would be in a vertical sense, so that the water, it wouldn't really come out this way, but so that the water can't seep through the side of the berm and out the side of the hill into the wetland area.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions or concerns, objections?
Just one quick question.
Sure.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
In the beta letter, there's a waiver 7 for section 8.2.6.A. And that's, I don't think, in this letter.
8.2.6.
Yeah, so disturbance to natural topography, applicant seeks a waiver to provide side slopes 2-to-1 when maximum slope is 3-to-1.
8.2.6.A is number 4.
Oh, right, number 4.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
The list that I have
Is just different?
Different order, okay.
Okay.
My apologies.
Nope, perfect, thank you. Okay, is everybody okay with the detention ponds?
Yes.
All right. And then number 8.
This is also to do with the detention ponds,
Yeah.
and this is actually a new one, so I doubt Beta has addressed it, but, or he may have brought up the fact, and I'm not exactly sure why this is in the regulations, to be honest, because, but there's a requirement for 25-foot setback to property lines. That's not something that I've ever heard of, to be perfectly honest. Sometimes we have property lines going right through a basin.
It all starts here.
Because the basins are within an easement, so, there's limitations to what property owners can do within the easement anyway, so I'm not sure exactly why the board would care if it's closer than 25 feet, but that's due to the slope and certainly the challenging site we have with regard to the wetlands and the vernal pool. We are limited in an area, plus this is actually an existing house that's remaining, so the way that the property line sits, there's just really not much we can do to get it further than 25 feet away from the property line. If there's a reason if there's something that we could do to address concerns, we'd be happy to do so, but.
Okay, so we will have to hear from Beta, but anybody else have any questions or concerns?
I just I don't know the history of that bylaw, but if we could find out the history of that, like, is it child safety? Is it water getting into basements? Why does that, why?
I think we'll ask Beta for sure. 'cause
Even
there's
if,
some,
so as far as protection, whether or not it's on a property line is irrelevant to the safety. That's there, you know, there's other measures that we take, like such as screening, which is one of his comments, which is a little bit of a safety and a little bit of just a visual, but again, if there's something that we can do to address the concern, we'd be happy to do so. So.
and we're going over time here a little bit to try and drive through your list, so at least this is mostly accomplished.
Yep.
Number one on the back side, the zoning buffer of a minimum of 100 feet. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have talked about
Yep.
this previously. Any place that we're looking for, I know this corner here is one of the, because of where the existing Whisper Way is and trying to come around, trying to follow that, it basically brings us too close to the property line for us to provide a 100-foot buffer in some areas. And then I think up where the community septic system is also an area where we were going to be within the 100 feet. We're asking for a reduction only to 77 feet, and it's adjacent to existing open space. So usually this buffer is sort of to buffer the subdivision to the surrounding development. In this case, the surrounding development is just more open space. So
That we prize. It's not just open space to Mrs. Kramer. Okay, does anybody have any questions or thoughts on that in particular? Okay, and then the lot frontage depth.
So basically, again, due to the steepness of the property, we are actually setting these houses back significantly from the road. Typically, in an open space subdivision, you're kind of pushing, they reduce all the setbacks for everything so that you can cluster the houses together. We're kind of gonna we're gonna have more open space along the road and then have the house developments, and then you're gonna have the actual legitimate open space. So just the way that the lots are constructed or laid out to accommodate the common driveways and that almost like a pork chop lot kind of scenario. It just doesn't lend itself to being able to meet the lot frontage depth.
Okay, any questions or concerns about that? Looking to the left and to the right.
I just want to say I struggle with the shared driveways, and I know that that's not requesting a waiver on that, but it just rubs me wrong. It just feels like you're forcing a lot in here. And like I said, there's not any one particular waiver that I have an issue with, but I don't know.
Just a lot of them.
Felt the need to say that it just feels a little forced, and particularly with the shared driveways. And I know there's an appropriate place for it. It just seems like there's a lot of long shared driveways, and there's a lot of things that are being done to accommodate that here. So I know Muriel lives on a shared driveway. I'm very sensitive about it, but.
So the length of the driveways actually is one of the reasons that I think it makes the most sense for there to be common driveways on this particular site, because again, with an open space subdivision, we're trying to limit the amount of tree growth that we're taking down. And you know, one of these driveways is 800 feet of shared and then another 200 feet. So if we if we gave you 2 separate driveways, you're now doubling 800, doubling the width
No, I agree.
for 800 feet.
It also doesn't make sense to have 2 driveways running next to each other, which there are, in some places you do see that. I just,
Right.
I understand your concerns, I just,
So I have 2 points, and I really do like my shared driveway a lot, and I like it because I'm set back off the road. And when my kids were romping around in my yard, I didn't really have to worry so much about my busy street. And in our experience too, it lended itself to building a really nifty little neighborhood where the kids could just fly around. So I can see how it could be fabulous, and I have no objections to it. The thing that I'm struggling with is the one that's not here is the long cul-de-sac and the really long driveways. And don't we have to waive the length of the cul-de-sac?
So that was a point I was going to bring up. I don't think the planning board can waive the length of the cul-de-sac.
Oh, well,
So
he's new.
In the open space regulations,
Yeah.
the maximum cul-de-sac length is 1,000 feet.
Yep,
Right now, it's proposed as
1,040.
so
And then,
that's,
We can only waive
show you
it
my-
in, we can waive it in traditional, but not.
it depends on, it depends.
yes, thank you.
It depends on how, we didn't intentionally propose it. Actually, both our firm and the surveying firm both came up with 2 different calculations that both were under 1,000 feet. Your regulations don't specify specifically how to measure the cul-de-sac, which a lot of regulations do, so that's certainly something you guys should look into. We can, so basically, there's the differences at the beginning and the end are it can be measured from the edge of pavement or from the edge of the right-of-way at the beginning. Actually, I've even seen it where you do it from the center line of the road. So there's several different starting points that you can go with, and just on the other end is the same thing. There's some towns that do it to the beginning of the bulb, some do it to the middle of the bulb, some do it to the pavement at the end of the bulb, some do it to the right-of-way at the end of the bulb. So depending upon how you want to measure it, it either already complies or it doesn't. So if you want to go along with Beta's measurement, then we'll, this is the difference, is the pink to the blue.
Okay.
Pink is what we have existing, the blue is what we
We'd have to
believe
move.
Beta would do.
And, I'm sorry, excuse me, the measurement that exceeds, the maximum length, that is based on the end of the pavement at the far end of the circle? Is that what it is? It's
The
based on,
pink- Yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
that's what the measurement is
Yes.
based on?
If you go from, if you go to the end of the, actually, I'm not 100% sure if it's the end of the pavement or the end of the right-of-way.
Okay, well, that's,
On the far side.
okay, but it's on the far side of that circle?
The far side, yes.
Okay.
So it
All right,
seems like
and-
if they could just work with Beta to get something that's 1,000, that would be fine, right?
Say it again.
They could work with Beta to determine a measurement that is.
Yeah, well, I think that
exactly
we're
1,000.
hearing is that we don't have any authority to
waive it.
to waive that.
Right, but you do have the authority to say whether or not, where the measurement is from.
Well, I suppose we probably do, but I think we should probably ask our engineers how they do it so it's consistently done, so that we aren't doing it differently for this than any other way.
And it sounds like they can just fix it by,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
it's not as simple as, there's a whole bunch of lot line changes that have to be made, so it's,
Well, let's find out from Beta how they measure.
well, obviously, they measured, they have already said that this is 1,000, it's 40 feet too
right?
long.
1,040, right?
So if you're gonna go along with whatever, then we'll change this so
Yeah.
that he is in agreement that it's under the 1,000, so that, like, my hope is to get be able to get I really think we have a chance of getting a clean letter from Beta prior to the next meeting, so that's why I wanted to get these things sorted out.
So I would opt to comply with Beta's measurements for consistency. I don't know what
We
other
can
people.
ask Beta how they've determined that measurement, whether it's from center line or edge of pavement, and then figure out, we can talk to Phil and.
Okay. All right.
So,
I would, if I could say something,
Yeah,
I
go
would
ahead.
throw a whole kink into the works, and I would try to look at some other designs that reduce the length of driveway. I have some real concerns about what's going on. And I think there are some ways to loop the road around, back on itself, or, because I guess I could echo Gary's point, is that I'm just not comfortable with the length of driveway for rescue, for the whole night sky thing. I think it's wonderful. And I know Muriel's neighborhood, and it's very, very different.
it is.
And I just want to say, for the whole wholesomeness of raising families in these bigger houses, that it's isolating these people from communicating with each other. And I think that some of those ramifications should be looked at as well. That's just, it's a total kink in the works, and I don't mean to be, but it's just a concern I have with looking at the plan.
So looping the road around is actually not allowed by your regulations. That's something that we actually proposed in our original submittal was a looped road.
Right, the lot just doesn't, well, it's the constraints of the lot, right?
Not, we
No,
looked at
you can't-
where the driveway, where there were two different entries.
That's
But-
allowed, yes.
Right.
That's what I thought you meant.
So
You
That's
mean a loop
allowed.
inside.
She was
I was
saying looping
looping around, so that's
I
not.
gotcha.
back around.
Do you know
on
what the
itself.
actual regulation that doesn't allow that is?
It's the measurement of a dead end is from the end. So if you looped it around, I don't have a marker, otherwise I would just.
Sorry.
No,
But if you looped it around like this,
Well, it'd be around like that. It'd be around, follow your finger around.
No,
and
so
then-
you-
Right.
right.
You'd
So
need the
measurement
secondary-
of the dead end, if we tied that into Whisper here, the measurement of the dead end is from here all the way
right.
around.
You have to have a secondary exit.
So the other one that I was thinking of at the end of the last meeting, but it would take out more trees, was to connect the, 11 and 12, take their road and pull it through.
So that's basically, if we were gonna do that, we would be going for a 24 lot subdivision, because that's what we had before. But if you're gonna have two access points, then we're not limited to it.
But I just wonder,
Completely different subdivision, and the Conservation Commission definitely does not like that, because
but it starts from a completely different location, so it'd be essentially echoing the drive, the drive for those second two lots. So the only difference that it would make up, so it wouldn't be doing what you did before, it would be doing around and coming up. So,
So Deb,
where's
Deb, I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt. I'm gonna let them figure out the constraints of their lot and the design they wanna propose.
Okay.
Have you talked to the fire chief?
Yeah,
Yeah, and what's he saying about this?
common drive?
The whole thing with the long driveways?
Oh, as I mentioned last time, I had talked to him, and, he has regulations for the long driveways.
Yeah,
He has a turn, if they're longer than every 500 feet, he wants a widened area so cars can pass.
okay,
And at the end, he wants a way that the truck can turn around to get out of there, it doesn't have to
Okay.
back out.
all right,
Which we can provide, and Dan's working on the plans for that now, the grading and that
Okay.
turnaround. And, other than that, he wants a widening area every 500 feet, so.
okay, all right. I definitely think, go ahead.
Through the chair, and I think there was sprinklers in
Yes,
the
over,
houses that were on the
Yeah, we have a couple driveways that
lot
are,
1, lot 5,
yep,
and probably
Thank you. I
lot
forgot
11 and
that.
12,
Yeah.
if, you know,
yeah,
just based on
11,
the
12.
line.
They weren't in it then, I don't
Yeah, they
think
weren't,
they were
yeah.
A and R.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we are gonna have to wrap up because we're
So,
late.
one
Yeah.
last thing.
Yep,
Phil defers to the planning board on whether or not you're comfortable with the letter from, which is the second piece of paper that I gave you guys. So normally in a subdivision, you'd have septic systems on every lot, so we
Yep.
would be providing soil testing for soil
Yep.
testing for those systems on each lot.
Yep.
Right now, we're providing a community septic system.
yep,
This is the letter from when we had the 22 lots.
yep,
But it's the same, we're using the same area for, we're using a smaller portion of the same area that we were proposing in the 22 lots. So we just want to make sure you're comfortable that with this, basically making, when and if you approve the subdivision, you'd be doing so contingent upon approval of the Board of Health on the final plans for the septic system.
I'm comfortable with that.
Because we've discussed it before.
Okay?
Do you have an access road to that leaching field and stuff?
You get an updated letter from the Board of Health, right?
Contingent on their approval, right?
An updated.
Right.
Yeah.
You just won't, we won't, unless you need that, unless you need an updated one prior to your vote, we would prefer to hold off on finalize it, because we have to finalize all of the design in order to get another letter from them,
So it'll definitely be a condition, I would think,
Yeah,
right?
that's fine.
which is completely reasonable.
Okay. It seems pretty intuitive. I hate to say those words out loud, 'cause, you know, but it seems like it should be easily obtainable if the first one was approvable. Okay, when's our next opportunity? July 8th. At what time?
Wide open unless we do the interviews.
July 8th is wide open, except we are going to do the interviews, right?
We haven't set a time for those, so.
Okay, all right. So, actually, if we do these folks at 7:30 and give you an hour, we can hopefully make real tracks, and then that allows people more time to get home if they work in Boston or whatever, for 8:30 interviews. Anybody object? Okay, let's do it that way, 7:30. Do we have to extend decisions?
Yes.
Somewhere in here? So that would be to the 15th. So, right?
Just for the definitive.
Just for the definitive,
Okay,
it would be to,
right, because the special permit is the 90. All right. I will entertain a motion to extend the continued public hearings for Whisper Way and to July 8th, and the decision on the definitive plan to July 15th at 7:30.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may, for
Yeah.
your information, Dave missed this meeting, so he will have to watch
Yeah,
telecast and sign a form. Frank he's out for the definitive, but he can still vote on the special permit.
oh, good Lord.
If he watches.
And our two new members
Not unless you choose to withdraw and resubmit
on the definitive,
on either,
on either.
because we've opened deliberations before they were on the board. For both.
So on the agenda today, it said we were opening the one, so was that not right then?
Oh,
It was
Yeah,
continued?
it should have been continued.
Yeah, okay. Yep, that's okay. Okay, so,
How many votes do they need?
so for, so they need, for for both special, for the definitive, that's a majority, is that correct? Okay, and you don't have 1, 2, 3, but Dave can watch. So there are 6 viable votes.
Correct. And I believe,
The special permit has to be a supermajority. You need 5 of those 6
I
votes.
believe you cannot miss one more, if you miss one more meeting, you cannot vote on the.
He is pointing his finger right at me. So I must have missed one of these and caught up. All right, so I have to attend. All right, just so you know, unless you decided to withdraw and start over again, but understanding you could fly right through the beginning portion of that. All right, thank you. That was important to know. And I'll try and attend.
I can't remember Dave missing a meeting.
Dave?
Yeah.
He's at his daughter's orientation at Penn State, so special occasion. Okay. There are a lot of orientations. I have a couple of friends. Big schools are over the summer. I've never done it that way. What's that? Orientation. Orientation. Yeah, I have a couple of friends who are out at orientation this week, so really big schools.
Can I move to adjourn?
You can, do it. Is there a second for adjourning?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are we approving minutes? Or
Huh?
Are we approving minutes? Or?
We did.
Oh, we did. Sorry. Okay.
That's all right. You were
wait,
signing.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. You're excused.
I did read them.
Yeah. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No.
I have to get a modification.
Recycling stack? Recycling?
Kobe, I owe you a modification. There was something that I wanted to redo.
Service providers. He was just like unbelievable.